welcome. I'm so glad that you've made it. We have got an extra special, wonderful show planned for today. Let me go ahead and just show you all the people who we've caught randomly in the wild and who have somehow agreed to hang on. With us today is the wonderful Carrie. Yay! And obviously, the winds must be calm today on the plains, in the mountains, something. It's Maggie! Woo! And a kitty! Many kitties. There are many kitties.
Many kitties.
I don't know how long we have her, but she is here, our wonderful expert when it comes to digital lighting, Laura, as well as, of course, writing. Of course. But we
Laura,
love
who
to hear
writes
it.
amazing YA fiction now.
Yes, fantastic. And you know him, I love him, my best friend, and just so happens to be my brother. We have grown up together. Also, funnily enough, total coincidence, I swear, my technical producer, Tom. Yep. Here he is. Yay! We are all here. It's fantastic. I am delightfully surprised to see you all here. Would anyone like to do an intro? They are entirely optional.
We found a squeaky toy.
We found the squeakies. Okay. We don't have to do it. It's fine. Maggie, did you want to do one? Carrie is
I'll go
Maggie
first.
Volunteering Carrie? I'm not clear.
5 o'clock is going first. 5 o'clock is going first. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm Mama Maggie Ward. I am a multi-genre author with books on Wattpad Inkit and on Amazon Kindle and Amazon Kindle Vella. You can find me under Penumbra Mine or Ward on most platforms. And I have a YouTube channel. But mostly I hang out with this lady here.
Yes, thank you. All right. Anyone else? Carrie, you're in the mood? Yeah. All right, let's, there we go.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I have been working on a fantasy series for a very long time, hoping to maybe have it out sometime next year, at least on Vella. And I occasionally remember to vlog about writing and mom life. I have a very high energy 2-year-old. And yeah.
Yep. Good stuff.
My turn.
All right, Laura.
My name is Laura Nettles. I have a YouTube channel called Laura Nettles where I go over my writing journey. I just vlogged and have finished my first draft of a middle grade horror. So follow along. Barrett, the lovely human, is reading it today and giving me notes. So the revision process will begin because it is way too short. So yes, that is me.
Very nice. Excellent. Good stuff. All righty. So here we are. Let's go ahead and do the chat because it's always fun. Maggie is here in the chat doing double duty because I like to say it. And Spence is here. Hello, sweetie. Maggie, are you muted?
I was just in the chat for a minute, and then I had to leave YouTube and come to StreamYard because my internet won't do both.
Understandable. But yes, Maggie's just got fittings everywhere. Charlie is here in the chat. It's like I just saw you, honey. And Megan is here. Hello, sweetie. And Laura's here doing double duty. Yes. And Nikki is here. Hello. And there is Carrie. Hello, doing double duty. Coming in on what are the Kindle Vella min-max.
Vindel Kella.
Yeah, words today. I've had 3 hours sleep. And hello, Diana. It is lovely to see you. So here we are. Hurrah!
Vindocella sounds like such a delicious meal. I mean, very Eastern
fancy.
European, Scandinavian, but
It does sound kind of European, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Like vaguely, like we made up the word European. What's going on?
Also, I do have a little just recommendation for everyone who's rewatching this. As the technical producer, I've been checking on some of the episodes, and I can really recommend. I do like YouTube's 1.5 speed for our shows, since we all are figuring out our words. It's not scripted, but at 1.5 speed, it's a nice pace. Everyone's still understandable, and then it's not quite 4 hours. Their shows seem to usually go to.
Very nice.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying their 1.5 speed playback.
And just click through the 10-minute breaks if you can, if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, if you got a touch screen and you haven't figured it out yet, if you tap on the right side at least twice, it's 10 seconds, and every tap is 10 more seconds after that.
Oh, my coffee's getting cold.
Oh, dear.
I have iced coffee.
Oh, very nice. That sounds good. I've got tea. I have got tea and a little bit of my remaining orange juice. So,
I've got
ginger
tea
ale.
and an energy drink.
yep, here we are. Writers just, with our favorite drinks. So, today's
Let's talk about
episode
editing.
is about editing. And I was saying to Tom, I was like, ain't nobody coming to this. Nobody's coming on screen. Nobody's going to come to even watch, because editing is the redheaded stepchild of the writing world. Nobody wants to admit they love it.
It's trauma.
I like editing.
I like editing.
I said I would be here because I undertook this massive project this year. And I've done nothing but editing, it feels like.
Well, yeah.
So,
How many tens of thousands of words have you edited this year?
9 books, 10, 11. I'm now on the 11th book that I'm editing this year, and they're all approximately 80 to 120,000 words.
Whew.
So,
Yeah.
I would say at least 1 million words she's edited when because every editing has multiple rounds and so on. So I would say minimum, maybe
so
several,
many rounds.
multi-million maybe. I think you need more sticky notes.
Well, I'd say at 10 books, averaging 100,000, that's already 1 million words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then how many edit rounds?
I usually
So many
do
millions.
3 or 4 rounds. And then 3 or 4 more rounds. And then 3 or 4 more rounds.
Yeah, that's a mood right there.
Mm-hmm.
It's editing. It's like you feel like a sloth going up Mount Everest. Just one.
Yes.
So do
Very
you write
slow.
all of them and then edit all of them and then write all of them, or do you break it up?
I only do 2 physical rounds where I do prints and do the writes, and then I do everything on different versions of the computer. Like the one that I'm working on now, I have 8 versions of the whip that I'm working on now, because every month every month I redate it for that month and which round of editing it is.
Mhm.
And that's so important, because with the book I just finished editing for a single indie house, when I was going through what they sent back from me, I realized that there were several sentences missing that had to do with the main character. And they were just a few sentences here and one sentence here and another there that had to do with the main character going to therapy or talking to her therapist or waiting for her therapist to call back. And I had taken them out in 2018 when I was querying the book. And when I got picked up, I hadn't put them back in. And so when I was reading through them, I was like, wait, there's something missing. And I had to go all the way back to 2018 to find what was missing. So never save over your existing edits.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that I break it up for me so my brain doesn't fry is I edit multiple books at a time. So I'll spend 2 days on one, 2 days on another, 2 days on another. So I can stay outside the world I'm editing. Because that's a really big problem with my brain damage that I have is I get into the world I'm editing and I think there are things in there that aren't in there.
Mm-hmm.
So project hopping, actually, unless you're doing the continuity edit, then you have to do everything at once. But project hopping helps you when you're editing. Another thing I do is I will make my computer read the document to me as I'm editing. And reading it yourself helps. Listening to something else read it also helps. So there's a lot of different tricks. And the other thing is no matter how many Grammarly, Grammar Write, Pro Write, Google Grammar, and MS Word Grammar, no matter how many grammar programs you have, they don't agree.
No, they don't. And they don't list what grammar book even that they are, or grammar style that they're going off of. They just are like, we've invented our own. It's problematic. So I think that's good advice, Maggie. Because like one of the things I hear from people is they hate the long slough of editing. And they just never want to read the story again, which look, okay, I'm going to say things. And it's okay if you absolutely 1000% disagree with me. We can still be friends. I will still love you. But I'm going to say the things. I'm going to say things that are not popular to say today. Because it turns out my views on editing are polarizing. So I guess I'll apologize ahead. I'm so sorry if you feel offended. It's not personal. I'm not trying to attack anybody. But here's how it goes. If you're editing and whatever you're writing is boring you. You're like, I don't care what happens to these characters anymore. Your readers will feel that way too. It is time to spice up your story. And if you're like, oh, I've tried spicing it up and I'm still just not into it, dump this project down. Dump it, like don't destroy it.
Shelve
Put
it.
it away, shelve it.
Put it aside.
Put it aside for months or years until you have more skill on how to like rework a boring story. Because you will get more skill. It's just you're not ready to edit it. And that's true of all creative works. No matter your medium. If we're talking about writing, we're talking about photography, painting, whatever, shelve it. If you're not enjoying it, no one else is going to either. Shelve it for now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't destroy it. Please don't destroy it. Please have people who love you in your life who will prevent you from truly destroying your work, even when you're in a moment. Please have people who will say, no, I don't think it's a good idea, or we'll just literally get your shit out of the trash and hold it aside, not tell you for months or years until you're like, I really wish I still had it. And they're like, do you really? Or do you want it, but then you want to destroy it again? And you're like, no, I actually really would love to work on it, but it's gone. And they're like, well, surprise. Have it. I pulled that hard drive out of the trash. I don't know, whatever. I've actually pulled friends' paintings out of the literal trash and loaded it into my car. So,
and then they had the audacity to request it back.
Yes. And I'm like, those are mine. I dug them out of the trash. They are mine. You'd have to pay me. And they're like, but I don't have any money, but I need it for a gallery showing. That's a true story.
You said these were worthless and they just need to go out to the trash. And
for the trash, we literally dug like 8 paintings out of the trash and put it in our truck. And you said that was okay. And you said you definitely didn't want it back that week. And when you moved to your new house, we asked you, do you want it back? And you were like, no, those are trash. I never want to see them again. And we're like, good, because they're hanging in our house. So don't come to our house unless you want to see them. And then 3 years later, Lori, do you still have the painting?
The audacity.
And I mean,
they haven't painted new ones in 3 years?
They had painted a few things. They had not. They did. I was like, "Are you going to give me a trade?" And they're like, "No, I need those." And the worst part is they sold them at the gallery for several $100s, and I'm like, "Those were mine. You sold my stuff, and I didn't get any money."
You
That
should have got a finder's fee.
That's what I'm saying.
Seriously.
That said, it paid their rent,
Paid
so
for
it wasn't
storage.
like these people were living, in a mansion or something. It paid the rent for several months, and I'm like. However, I did lie to him about having the last one, which is actually the biggest piece. I lied and said, "Oh no, we don't have any more of your paintings." So they didn't ask for the next gallery showing. And then they found out when they actually came to the house like a year or two later, they're like, "Oh, you said you didn't have any more." I'm like, "Oh, I lied straight to your face because I didn't want to give this one up. I really like it." So, however, I have told this person, like, if you actually needed to sell, you can have it, but you have to give me something in trade this time. Because you still owe me several. They owe me like 3 paintings in trade. So, I'm just saying, have people who understand that you may have a moment where you're like, I've moved on in my life. I don't ever want to see this creative work ever again. It's absolute trash. And they're like, I'll just store it. Ben says, my father has that same audacity. He won't get rid of his art and insults it all the time. But can I hang them up in my house? No. Yeah, exactly. We all need allies to our art who will help protect us from our bad choices. But yeah, I would say in your editing, if you are boring yourself, even though, yes, I know you've reread your own story 18 times already, you know how it ends. Spoilers! You're still fixing the ending. If you are bored with it, if you dread it because you don't find it exciting, you don't find it interesting or compelling, versus you dread it because you don't know how to fix it, that's a different problem that we will talk about. But if you're dreading editing because you just are not into these people anymore, you're so over these characters, they whine to you and you don't care about them, and you don't care if they live or die, shelve that bitch. Shelve it. It means that there's something in the editing that you don't yet have the skill for. It doesn't mean that the story is inherently flawed yet. And Grace said, this is why I stick to digital, easier to delete things and no one can stop me. Yeah. This is filed under own worst enemy. Yeah. Y'all, I've only had 3 hours sleep today. I had the filters, the gates are so weak. Okay. I'm already cursing. Yeah. I'm already telling y'all what I really think.
Well, the
worst having to part mute myself because Roy is dragging his food bowl around the floor of the apartment.
It's not just Roy. He's got a body armor bottle that he has decided is his new teething toy, and he's just running around the house banging it on things.
Because it sounds great against his teeth.
It's better the bottle than our shoes.
Yes, true. Hard to teach them not to choose shoes.
I think one thing, a lot of people, when they hit not the first editing pass, like Tom posted the other day, the first time you write it, that's you telling yourself the story. The second time you work through it, that's you getting the story ready to tell someone else. It's that third and fourth, the later rounds of editing, when people, unfortunately, I think the voice a lot of indie writers hear is they hear the imp. They hear the imp sin, imposter syndrome, creeping around, and no one's going to read this. You're not good enough. This is blah, 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 blah. You know, whatever you hear, and you hear it in the voice of the person in your life who discouraged you the most. I found this to be true too, that the person whose approval you sought the most is the person whose voice the imp is in. Yes. And it's that when you get into the later things, the hardest part of not just going chuck or delete like Grayson does, shame on you, Grayson, is that voice in your head. And we all like to say that we're going to duct tape it to a chair and throw it in the closet in the back of our mind, but it escapes. It's like Bluetoothed, and
Yes.
and so that I think is actually beyond like the continuity and plot holes is the imp.
Yeah.
Hearing the imp in your head while you're editing in the later rounds. That I think is one of the harder parts of writing and editing.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Like the imp really shows up loud for me about 2/3 through my editing process. So, I've talked before about when I was editing for nonfiction articles for local newspapers and magazines. As much as I would aim for 10 rounds of edit, the truth is it was more like 17 to 20 rounds. Because yes, I have perfectionist issues that I am still will be working through the day I die. But about 2/3 through that, so like somewhere between round 12 and 15 of these editing rounds is where the imp gets so loud that I'm like, I don't even know I'm still working on this. I need to just move on or, write something else. Anything is better than what I have. The shame I will bring on myself and my family if I submit this article. Like that imp gets so loud, but it's like, no, the answer to the imp is keep editing. And if necessary, read it out loud to someone else.
Not today, Satan.
Truly.
Hey, that is the correct use, since that literally just means you're the opposition.
Yes. But like the only thing I found that actually works against the imp right now, like my current working solution, is to read it out loud to someone else. I tell myself the reason I'm doing it is to check for flow and to see, audience reaction. But what I'm actually getting out of it is I am getting flow, I am getting audience reaction. But the most important part is, let's be honest, I'm getting validation that the person I'm reading this out loud to is enjoying it. So that's what keeps me like usually going for another 2 to 3 rounds. And then I have to then read it out loud to a different person under the guise of final editing rounds. But really, I need that validation to be able to ignore the imp. The sense says, when you're a real writer, you'll know how to fix this. Bitch, you just drafted it. Finish this draft. Can we be pleased with ourselves for 10 minutes? No.
You have to have the little celebrations.
I know.
You can't just immediately put it in a drawer and move on to the next project. You have to celebrate a little bit.
I feel like that's what ice cream is for.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we should eat all of our celebrations, but
Or cookies.
I mean,
Fresh
that's
baked
why,
cookies.
And pie.
But like a nice
Yeah, and pie.
scoop or two, maybe a really big
that's
scoop.
why a lot of
With a
like people,
ladle,
when they're
you know.
giving advice, when people are giving advice for like NaNoWrimo, for example,
Yeah.
a lot of people will say when you've completed or when you've hit your writing goal, whatever that may be, or you've completed your draft, shelve it.
Mhm.
Like take a break from it and then go back to then look it over. Partly because you're getting NaNoWrimo, using that example, you're getting into the holidays and life's going to be cray. So
Right, because you set everything aside for Nano in November, so now it's like, oh, I got to catch up with the holidays now.
Mm-hmm. Or if you're crazy like me and worked in retail and tried to get your Nano project done by Thanksgiving, which really doesn't help if Thanksgiving falls in like the 3rd week of November.
Yeah, that's
You're shooting
right.
yourself in the foot real bad, but
But yeah, I would agree. Even just, if you since let's be honest, Nano's coming. We all know it's coming.
ooh,
Countdown
that
has
sounds
started.
good.
But like when every day that you reach your Nano goal, the daily goal, it's during your next break, go celebrate a little. Get that little treat.
Do a
You know,
dance party or something.
do the dance party, sing along to your favorite karaoke, get that scoop of ice cream, whatever it takes, even if it's just, all right, you could spend 10 minutes on your favorite retailer website and put things in the cart. Maybe you can't buy it, but you could put it in the cart. Give yourself that little time to do that, to celebrate, because you have to celebrate the little wins when you get them, or you will not stay the course. You just won't be able to. Because that's not how human brains work. We're not wired for long-term goal accomplishment without any little rewards in between. We're just not wired that way. So yeah, I would definitely agree about, get your kitten in, foster some kittens. So you're like, as soon as I reach today's goal, it's kitten time. Maybe some selfies covered in kittens, whatever you need to do. Let's not talk about shooting yourself in the foot with plans for the holidays already. I don't want to think about it. I know.
Yeah.
And the other thing is Camp Nano. The first is in April, which is
Easter.
spring break, Easter holidays, immediately followed by May Day and Mother's Day.
Yep.
And the second Camp
Don't forget
Nano
a lot of people's family reunions.
The second Camp Nano is July, which summer school break if you're in the northern hemisphere.
Camps.
Winter break if you're in the southern hemisphere.
Yes.
Holidays, there seems to be an excess amount of holidays in July in everywhere.
Oh yeah, well there's like America, we got 4th of July, Canada's got Canada Day. There's like, it's from the very start of July. There's stuff.
So July camp is as stressful as Nano, simply because of all of the other things going on. That's like, you're like, can I get 500 words a day? That's all I want.
Feels like asking for the moon sometimes. And that's why, you have to find that reward wherever you can. Even if it is, yes, you get extra ice cream every day that you actually reach your goal. Whatever it takes.
But yeah, you do have to make sure you tell the back of your brain you accomplished something. You deserve this dopamine.
Yeah.
Or else, guess what? It ignores it. It's like, you know what? I'll pay out later then.
Yeah, no. You can't do the payout. It's like, no, load the kids in the car. We're going for ice cream. Like right now, mommy or daddy or parent just made the, today's writing goal, kiddies. We're going, and they're like, yay!
Getting this does not make me happy. I have to have the one without the banner, or I'm still not happy.
Right? Because it's not really real.
This is not enough.
I can't say anything. Everything I've ever been published in, by like newspapers, magazines, we've gotten multiple copies because it's like a little dragon horde. Like, no, we need extras. So yeah, like a lot of my storage is in fact like I have too many old newspapers now. Like, ain't nobody care. And I've got tons of these newspapers and tons of these magazines because I've got multiple copies of each issue that one of my articles is in, because one's for the scrapbook that I still have not scrapped. And then the rest are, I think, for ego validation mostly, or just in case I mess up the scrapbook cutting on the first one, right? That's what I tell myself. Because it feels real. It feels really real when you've got that professionally published version.
And there's a different dopamine rush, a different feeling you get from holding the hard copy to the ebooks.
Mm-hmm.
Because Tom saw my struggle with Vela of, I had all this stuff up and it was being published and everything, and I was like, it doesn't feel like it counts. And that's another struggle, like with like starting writers. If you're writing on your computer, if you're writing on your phone, actually print out yourself a copy. There's something about touching the copy that, like, Carrie's got her.
Now, this is 4 books. This is 4. 4 first drafts. So that's why it's in the 3-inch binder. But I can't edit on the computer. So that's why I print it out.
I can't edit on paper because I need to be able to fix it right away as I see it, or else I'll never find it again.
There's mine.
My manuscripts are so like brightly colored after I highlight the crap out of it.
This is the first page of the article.
Rainbow poop. They look like rainbow poop.
And then, and this is the interview I did of another author, and they were both published in the same issue. But yeah, y'all, I'm just going to tell you the truth. What have I got? At least 8 or 10 copies of these somewhere in the house.
Yeah.
Because look, y'all, it's color printed. It's a real magazine that's no longer exists. But it was at one point real. And versus like what my mother did, what was that, 20 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she had it. This is what she did. So, yes, our whole family wrote this one. The Think That Stole Christmas. And she would then, so this is what she did so that she felt real. That was how she back, do y'all know once upon a time copy paste was a literal thing? But I have it here because I was the editor for all of these when I was, in middle school. I was the one editing all her columns, and she did leave these to me. It is important to mark your own work, however you can, whatever you can, good, better, best. Because when that imp, just like Maggie talks about, when that imp is like in your head, you go, let me go pull out something I have that makes me feel good. And reread the thing that I did before when the imp didn't win. That was the article I wrote. It was a therapeutic guide for Thanksgiving where I reviewed cookbooks and like talked about people's family and how, because it was 2017. Was this one? No, this is November 2015. It's helpful as a way to be louder than the imp.
Sometimes, though, you get published and it comes out and you're like, maybe I should have changed some things. Oh no, it's not the best it could have been. Now I'm ashamed it's out there and people are reading it, and oh no.
Okay, look.
Okay,
again, people are gonna be like, why did Glory come for me?
As someone who has read all of your short little tiny snippet things, no.
I'll just say what I
she
think.
went mama voice on.
I'll just say what I think, and here it is. Keep it to yourself, and do not tell your readers that the thing you wrote could be better, because you're taking away their joy and their enjoyment, and that's cruel. And even if they've already read it, you're taking away their memory, the joy they have of that memory of reading it. So it's okay, like, in our everything is fine support group meetings backstage, it's fine to vent to like fellow writers about this thing I did and it's all published and I can't unpublish it, but it is absolute trash fire. It's all right to say it to fellow writers because we're all like, there. Is there like alcohol or chocolate you could access right now? Because it sounds like you need it, But like, y'all, and I say this because I am thinking of some fellow author tubers. Do not put it on your Instagram that a book you just published that people have already ordered and received has a trash chapter in it. Do not do that. That is cruel to readers, even though I know technically you're being cruel to yourself. As I said, vent to your fellow colleagues because we understand we're here for you. Do not tell that to your readers on the book they just ordered and they maybe have already started reading and they're loving. You're taking away their joy. It's cruel. As much as, look, I'm totally there. Of like, look, every single thing people complimented me that used to be printed in this magazine, I would be like, oh, I cannot believe I just sent them absolute trash. They're going to send it back, Tom. And every time I say, give them 2 to 3 days, they'll read it and they'll send it back going, we can't publish this month. And they never did do that. But I was like, I'm going to get caught eventually. They're going to be like, no, this one is too shitty. At some point, this article, every month, it was, at some point, they're going to go, this glory, this is a bridge too far. It's too shitty.
It's either that or it's they just didn't have enough people submit, so they accepted whatever came.
Right?
Mentality.
Let me tell you.
Take that. Take it from the person who was, you don't happen to have something you can throw in. We don't have enough. Let me panic scramble something together in a week and edit it and send it in so you have another short. No. And the thing is you don't know when that rush, when that this thing, you don't know when that's going to be the thing that all of your betas send back to you and go, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Or when that's going to be the thing that starts your fandom. You don't know what piece of work. And you all see me use the hashtag no words left behind. I think for indie authors, I think that needs to be almost a religious mantra for us.
Mm-hmm.
And especially with authors like Laura, who have this incredible gift for doing microfiction and flash fiction.
Mm-hmm.
That is a gift. I need 5,000 words to describe my coffee. Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm an overwriter, and it shows in my editing. It's a gift. So don't leave your words behind. Don't, if the idea if the thought is there, if a scene comes to you, write it down. If you're editing and you pull it from a book, you're like, no, this scene doesn't belong there. And Carrie's talked about pulling scenes and being like, no. And it's like, we were talking, I don't remember whose stream we were on. I think it was Kat's. We were talking about, you had pulled some scenes that you didn't like, but we were talking about saving them for another book.
Mm-hmm.
It was months ago. But I was just in
it.
the chat when you were talking about that. And it's like, save your orphan scenes. Have a 3-ring binder or a folder on your computer that's stuff that doesn't fit in that book. You never know when it will be perfect for another book.
Well, that is the beauty of editing, isn't it? Is like, in order to edit, you have to have clay. You can't shape it into anything without clay, right? You can't make an urn. You can't make a cup without clay.
The first thing you went to was urn.
Yeah, I was looking at you too, Laura. I was actually looking at I was like, an urn. But you've got to have the clay first. All these parts you cut out of something, all the little lines that you're like, nope. All of that is clay, so to speak, that you could reuse later in something else. So when I back years ago, so long, 5 years. No, actually it was more like 15 years ago. When I was trying to learn the craft of fiction writing, because I felt very ignorant of all parts of fiction writing. I had heard of the hero's journey. I'd never actually read what the hero's journey is. Every time my sister would mention the hero's journey, I would literally tune her out. I was just like, yeah, whatever. And so because I was like, that doesn't have anything to do with what I write. I write humorous nonfiction. I write recipes and stuff. I write memoir type stories, but hero's journey just doesn't apply to me. So I would just tune her out. And then there I was a few years later going, I am not prepared to write these fictional characters that will not leave me alone. So one of the things that I did was anytime an idea came to me, I would just write it down in a notebook, even though I had no idea how these characters would eventually coalesce into a plotted story. But now here we are 15 years later, and we're about to go to press on Vela with, hey, here you go. Here's all these disjointed scenes. And after this, we're going to make it into a coherent story, but not before. Because I'm feeling froggy. So you just never know what you're going to end up using for a story later. You have no idea. I've noticed several people who have, when I've asked authors, one of the writing tropes I like is where there is a guide within the book. Within the book, a character is using a guidebook, and the story keeps quoting the guidebook. I love this trope. It's I know a lot of people don't like it, and I don't care. Douglas Adams used it very nicely in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series.
And Mur Lafferty.
I was literally like, I'm swallowing to then say Mur Lafferty in what was it like Vampire?
The Shambler's Guide.
The Shambler's Guide to, I don't know, shambling through New York, whatever.
To New York.
Yeah.
To New York and then New Orleans.
Yes. So I love this little trope. And I had done a bunch of research of how did Mur Lafferty come to this idea. And eventually I found that she was on Twitch. And she had, after one of her she was playing games, or she was watching a movie with her daughter. And that was actually the first time I heard about Amazon watch parties. And afterwards, she's like, yeah, I guess we'll open it up to a little Q&A if y'all have any questions. And I literally asked, so how did you get the idea for the tour guide, the guidebook in, these two books? I really love it. But what happened is she said, that was me not knowing what to write. So I kept writing that as a writing exercise. It was a writing exercise for her that she's like, and I did that for someone else who was trying to teach her something or was running one of these writer workshops. She's like, so I was just doing it as a writer, as an exercise. And years later, I got this idea for this main character. And I was like, oh, I need a guidebook. And I think a friend said, what do you mean? You already have one. Remember you wrote for what in his workshop. And she's like, oh, I forgot about that. Where? It's in a notebook somewhere. And that was the start of that. So you never know what's going to be useful later. So I think part of editing is hoarding. But hoarding in a separate storage unit, not the main storage unit you're trying to make something coherent out of.
Mm-hmm.
It's hoarding,
Also,
all of your orphans bits in another storage unit.
But the trick to it is to hoard in a way that you can find it later. You don't have to keep track of it in your mind.
Yeah.
So, you see with Maggie, using both Post-it notes and other papers, other binders, so that, so you can concentrate on what you're editing right then and there, but that you don't need to keep that in processing, that whatever you've removed, but it's just still there for review later. Because otherwise, if you can't find a way to trust yourself to take that scene out, your brain will try to keep it running and process, the back of your head,
Mm-hmm.
and it will take up more energy versus, if you have a folder for all your orphans.
And
it is actually a lot of a relief.
And give them more than just a random, give a little 4 or 5 word sentence title to that folder, or you're going to end up like the basement of the Smithsonian with just numbers and boxes, miles of boxes.
It is one of the major reasons that we still keep a working printer at the house. Even though, it's kind of annoying. And quite honestly, it has problems from time to time, often. I feel like it has problems often.
Every printer we bring to this house has problems.
But
Maybe
What?
you should just get Lady Kaiju Spider to write it on her web.
Oh, no.
But then where do we preserve it?
Glass.
Oh, no. No, me and
Oh,
glass.
no, you haven't seen Glory in Glass. No.
Yeah, not a great idea. Glass breaks around me, like how electronics break around me.
Do you sing to them and they just vibrate so hard?
No, I mostly think things and they
No, she
break.
she thinks really hard and it breaks.
My mother
It
used to yell at
shatters.
me when I would just sulk in a corner of the living room, and she'd walk into the kitchen and glass would burst. And he's like, "Glory, stop it!" I'm like, "I'm over here." Adolescence was difficult for me. I'm just saying. It's just glass.
You're a witch, Glory.
I'm what? Things. Yes. The laser printers, because if you print things out, you have a secondary copy in case something happens to your digital copy. Also, sometimes the mind works differently when you have a printed copy. Part of my editing process, actually, is it has to be printed out, and I have to then sit on it for a little bit, not look at it for a day or till I've forgotten it. Thankfully, I have ADHD, so I barely have object permanence, so I will quickly forget things. So as long as it's just in my, today's paperwork, the next day when I'm going through, I'm like, oh, it's almost like it's brand new. I vaguely remember writing this. What? I don't have like a strong memory of it, so I can edit it with fresh eyes. But there is something to be said for having a physical copy to edit, and that is part of my process, is every couple editing rounds to have a physical copy printed out as part of the hard edits and going over it. That really does help me. Look, I realize most people, including y'all, are not dyslexic. You don't have ADHD. You don't have a variety of learning disabilities, and you're not neurodivergent, or at least you're not neurodivergent like me. You're neurodivergent in a different way. I say all that to say, give it a try. You'd be surprised what cheap ink you can find.
And you can upload to Amazon and not have a release date programmed in. And it's getting the prints from the Amazon print on demand is actually cheaper than going through Office Depot or Staples.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Because
just getting
really
yourself
good
a
tip.
proof.
the proofs are $4 to $6 depending on how thick they are. And and they come with the banner on them. You can just put, and they have like template images. If you don't have a cover art, just put one of their random templates on there with just the name of the book. But it's having that to hold. You can read over an e-paragraph like 10 times, but read something about reading over it on paper, your brain perceives it differently. Your brain perceives printed media differently than e-media.
Yes, I agree.
And so
I think it's a really good tip, Maggie. I didn't know it was so inexpensive. That's a really good price for print on demand.
And then you get a whole bunch of these to stick in the book.
Yeah, tear it up with your pens, with your colored pens when you are editing. Okay. When you're editing, have your colored pens and tear that thing up with colored pens with all your notes and go over. Yeah, break the spine if you need to get it to lay flat when you are, fixing your edits in your digital version.
I'm clutching my pearls at broken spines.
It's not a real book. It's a proto book. I don't know.
Okay.
I
don't know why I'm so averse to book
I think the thing is, I used to be like, don't break the spine, and now I know how to repair books, and I'm like, it's nothing. Y'all, I literally have the archival tape and glue. It's fine. So maybe that's why I'm like, no, I know how to fix it. It's just craft. So maybe that's why I'm less like, I used to be very pearl clutchy about, but this poor book has been through the ringer, and now I'm like, I have all the tools to fix this baby. Give me 5 minutes and quiet. And so maybe that's it. But, sometimes I need the book to lay flat to type. And I'm just saying, if I'm trying to like transpose my edits from a printed version to the digital, so be it. But yeah, you know what? I agree with Maggie. I think it's a wonderful idea, even if it's something you never intend to publish. Go do a a print on demand.
And here's another thing that I've discovered that you can do. There's one that I created like 3 years ago that I will just upload, change the title and upload different stories that I need to read the printed copy of and have them send me a new proof copy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's different books. So, and this for people who are very like, they need that tactile, it's very helpful. Now, unfortunately for my brain, it doesn't work because my brain it only recognizes the final completed released product. But it's nice. You can select different page sizes, different fonts, and now that the way they've got it done is you can format in Word or in Scrivener and just upload the format and not have to go through that very uncomfortable, bulky Kindle formatting tool.
I mean, that sounds so much better because, the last time I heard about it, it was like, no, you had to use their...
Yeah, now you don't have to do that, which is so nice. You can just use a docs and upload it, and it works out so nice. But again, it gives you a different way to edit. Mm-hmm. And I am not a big fan of these. A lot of author tubers will talk about this is the way to edit. No, you have to find, it's like writing. There is no this way. Mm-hmm. You have to find your method. You have to find your editing style. And it's hard, and it takes years of tinkering and feeling around and trying this and trying that. And is finding the forbidden words had that and very easier on e-copies? Oh, yes, it is. Mm-hmm. But then finding other mistakes, like weird tense changes that you didn't realize you used the wrong tense in one sentence and one paragraph in one chapter in the entire book, is another thing.
Or what always jumps out at me in printed versions, but not in digital versions, is a double printed half of a sentence. That, for some reason, my eyes has a tendency to skip over on the laptop. But when I'm looking at a physical printed version, that jumps out at me of like, whoa, why does this look the same? This is not
or even
right.
Even sometimes repeated paragraphs. Your brain will skip the repeat on the e-copy, but on the physical copy, you'll see it. Yes. It's just, there's so many methods, and and like, I have brain damage. I have memory issues from my stroke. It's caused me to have weird perceptual abnormalities and stuff. And so Scrivener has all of these tools, and none of them help me.
Mood. Yeah. So
what we seem to be really getting at, though, is the people often don't realize, unless they've been in education, that there's a lot of different ways kids can learn the same information. And if you have a group of kids, the likelihood that they all learn the same way or the same method is very low. So you need to do it in so many different forms at the same time. And editing is the same way of, depending on the parts of your brain and body you use, will give you different emphasis to skills involved with creative output. Mm-hmm. And so no particular one's going to be best. It's more of you need a conglomerate to truly get at all the different angles to a work.
And sometimes it'll change from book to book depending on like what's going on and what works at the time of whatever period in your life.
Ain't that the truth? Nia says, my best editing hack is listening to your draft, even if it's just Siri. But there are reader apps too. Yes. There are some really good ones.
Naturalreader.com, I think. You get 20 minutes for free every day with a very natural or sounding voice reading it aloud. And then you can pay if you want to go all hours of the day listening.
Yeah, we've been using, what was it, the Google Reader?
Yeah.
And that for the Google ebook.
Google
app.
Books.
You can just make any folder or file into an ebook format that Google can then read. And it has pretty good natural reading rhythms. So we've done that before too for larger documents. Although, to be perfectly honest, you've met us and we just like to talk. So frankly, we're happy to just read it out loud to each other. It's only when one of us is not available to the other that it's like, well, I guess I need Google. But yeah, it is excellent. On that note, how about we go ahead and take a 10-minute break? There's a lot of things we could do. We could take a little walk around the house, whatever. We could have a snack. Yep. We could get water or at least liquids of some form because it is a hydrate or dihydrate kind of show. There's cuddling with various fluffy and adorable creatures that you may have collected over the time. And, just maybe even a bio sort of break, which I'm just saying these are options. We'll be back in about 10 minutes. We hope you will be too. For Act 2. More editing wonders. So we'll see you in a few minutes. One sec. I did. Okay. I use the break for biological purposes. And then when I come back, I forgot to plug in my good nights. So I just needed to check. So anyhow.
I got
Homemade popcorn.
and pecans.
Ooh, nice. What?
Uh-oh. Cinderella's awake. Say hello.
Hello, Cinder.
Cinder's so sweet. I love her blue eyes.
Spencer thought you meant you sang along with math music. Okay.
Hello, Heather.
Hello, Heather.
Did you get your mad crocheting done, Spence?
Okay. So, there is a way during breaks to talk backstage if you're using an OBS interface as well as StreamYard.
My bad.
But I do not have that set up. So, there is technically a way. It is not you're using more than StreamYard to do it, so you can't just do it exclusively in StreamYard. Kat did it, so I know it's possible. Yeah. What? Yes. Spence says, no, I still have 14 sections, so approximately 32 rows by Saturday. LOL. Frantically tying knots. Yeah, I don't know if I have a computer, a laptop strong enough to run StreamYard, OBS, and other things yet. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Yes. Smells like heaven. Okay, so here we are back. Oh, Carrie will be back at a later point. Something about a peanut need to go outside. I'm just saying. Oh, she'll be back when she's back.
I thought something we haven't talked. That's something we haven't actually mentioned yet in editing. Is to actually mention the portions of editing. Yes, there is the grammar and spell check, but that's just the editing we do so we feel like we accomplished something. Look at that little tail.
There's developmental as well.
But the
like a dragon.
Yes, I know. I'm surprised you did that because I'm familiar with kittens.
Oh yeah.
They don't know how to keep their claws in.
You got to get them to walk on fine sandpaper in order to get those little claws.
Hypodermic needles.
Yeah.
At the end of their paws.
Y'all think I'm crazy, but I have actually had kittens walk across fine sandpaper, and it has helped. So I'm just not into drawing my own blood by kitten. I know. I'm weird. I'm the weird one.
But that, like, really, when we talk about editing, we're talking about these other parts, which is you're editing for content. You're editing for flow. You're seeing if you have all the scenes in order to make sense of what happens later in the story.
And what
people do that? What?
And also, what's missing? Because you built this world, you plotted it out, you designed these characters, but what do you know in your mind that you forgot to tell the reader?
Yes.
Because there's who Herbert Dune or Herbert
Frank Herbert, yeah.
Frank Herbert, who wrote Dune. There are things that when you read it, you're like, they just don't make sense. You're like, and you go back
Yeah,
and
there's
you
so
look,
much missing.
and there's so much missing. And the thing is, but he knew that world. It was in his head,
Mm-hmm.
but we aren't in his head with him.
Mm-hmm.
Because it would
Like,
be
it would be another book before you find out what the Butlerian Jihad was.
Thank you.
Like, what is this? Because they keep referencing it, but it's like, what is it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, we don't do that anymore because after the Butlerian Jihad, we don't do what?
What don't we do?
Why is it we don't have machines anymore? Because of this jihad. We don't talk about it. What? You SOB.
Okay, so
But continuity.
yes,
Yeah.
and coherency. Coherency is where sentence to sentence, paragraph to paragraph, this stuff makes literal sense. Like the words actually equal meaning versus gibberish. And this seems like a very obvious thing to say. Like, well, Glory, I didn't think that you really needed to say that. Everybody edits for coherency. Aha. No, because I've read in actual published books, just technically every one of the words was spelled correctly, but together they do not make sense. Of like in a sentence, no, this is not how an English sentence is strung together. I don't know what this is supposed to be, let alone a whole paragraph of gibberish. And I was like, I remember there was, what was it? Was it a romance novel that I was reading something? But I remember literally writing in the book, stroke, because I was like, did this person writing this suddenly like have an aneurysm? And it's like, I'm not trying to be funny. I was just like, is this the sign of a problem? And I was like, no, I handed it to Tom to like, here, you read it. And I didn't tell him about this whole like paragraph that I had like cordoned off writing stroke ? Just to see if Tom would also notice this. And he was like, yeah, it's good that you let me know the author had a stroke because then I wasn't as alarmed. And I'm like, no, I didn't know. I just thought, you know, now I've since found out like word salad can also be a symptom of other disorders or other problems with other medications. In fact, I did not know this as a teenager. But there are like some serious, you know, not just Klonopin, that if it goes wrong, you can get weird side effects like word salad. But there's a couple other really necessary, needed drugs that sometimes everything's fine for years and suddenly, boom, and then, you know, they get it fixed and they're fine. But for whatever reason, this author did not go back and fix it. And it would take another 8 years before I find out, yes, in fact, they did have an aneurysm.
Oh.
And apparently they and their editor never noticed this one paragraph. It went to publication.
I think I had this discussion with you guys after one show where we were talking about how, like, one of my editors, English is her third language. And so the colloquialisms and the terms and the phrases she uses are extremely different from like American conversational English. And so we go back and forth all the time talking about it. We both find it interesting, you know, but she'll put something in and I'll be like, oh, in America, we say it this way. And, or in Great Britain, they will say it this way.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. It's like, for continuity's sake, like, especially with the global publishing market now, you have to understand that, like, if you put, when you're editing, and this is like where content editors and sensitivity readers and stuff come into play, because if you say in America, oh, he's getting the milk for free. We all know what that means. That means he is not putting a ring on it.
Right.
In China, if you say he's getting the milk for free, it means a totally different thing. It means that they're stealing someone else's hard work, that they're going in and they're stealing the milk that someone else is taking care of the cow to produce.
Has a very different meaning.
And I can't remember where else it is, but there's another country where to get the milk for free means that they're on charity. They're getting charity.
Mm.
So you have the same phrase, but in 3 different parts of the world, it means very, very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing when you're editing for like continuity and clarity that you need to be aware of that the different phrases mean different things in different places around the world. So if you're publishing to the world market, you need to be aware that different readers will take the colloquialisms differently. And another thing, like personality changes. And this is where you hope that the author has a really good beta reader, because you'll be reading this person and they're acting one way, and then all of a sudden it's like alien parasites ate their brain.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I hate to say this happens a lot in romance, like especially the enemies to lovers trope, where one kiss and suddenly have forgotten everything evil the other person ever did, and it's like instant amnesia, and like, or you have this strong character and all of a sudden they're around this one person and they're a bumbling idiot. That's another thing that good beta reading and good editing can wean out, where you have these places where a character who has always acted one way is suddenly acting in completely different. Oh, hello, Roy.
Hey, baby.
Hey. Just another day. Come on. Or 2. And you also get that it happened though in your own editing when you move scenes around. Your character may change over the course of a story, but if you realize this scene belongs, a third of the way over in your story, suddenly their personality may be playing out differently at that point. And that's again where you need those alpha readers to tell you wait a minute, what happened to this person? They just reverted. Or they just, changed to how they will be or whatever, but just stuff happens in editing, and that's.
Well, I was reminded,
and the person is getting the information that they got 10 chapters ago.
Yes,
because the scene is now after the reveal.
I was reminded of, so there is an Isaac Asimov book series, Robots of the Dawn. And I think it was the second book in the series. I think if I remember correctly, the second book in the series is actually the first time that the main character goes off-world to the moon, I think it is. And the first time I read it, it was, I don't know, the umpteenth reprint. It was like probably from the late 80s, a paperback copy. And I liked it very much. A couple of years later, like it wasn't even like maybe 3 years later, I saw it at the library, and it was a first edition copy. And I checked it out to just reread it again, because at the time, and I mean, I still like it, but at the time it was truly one of my favorite book series. I loved the investigator and his robot sidekick, solving crimes. I loved this idea. And the second book is my favorite one of the whole series. I think it's the second book. But, so this is a first print or a first edition. Not a big deal in sci-fi. Who cares? It's not like, oh, it's a first, nobody cares. But I was reading it, and about a third through the book, I was like, wait, did they change it later? Who is this character who suddenly, like, it seemed to me, the way it was written was the person, the investigator on Earth, is then told, oh, you've got to go off to the moon colony, to solve a mystery. And instead of him going off, it's an entirely different character. The name changed and the character's personality changed. And I was like, because see, the main character had something like societal claustrophobia or something, which is explored in the first book, where he's very uncomfortable at the idea of open spaces, but since he lives in a dome city, as do most humans on the planet at that point, it's not a big deal. They all live very close together in these dome cities. I mean, they still have high rises within the dome city, but because the rest of the planet isn't really breathable, everybody lives in dome cities, and to not be within a domed confine is very scary because you could suffocate to death. You could die of pollution and so on. So he has, this sort of societal claustrophobia about open air and fresh air. He doesn't like the idea of air that hasn't been processed. Which I've met people who feel that way about their food. So it seemed logical that, okay, I guess in the future people could maybe, feel that way about air, where they don't like the idea of fresh air because fresh air can sometimes kill you. And so it made sense to me of like, oh, they originally not have the first investigator from the first book go to the moon to do the investigation, but just sent this other person who doesn't have this issue? Apparently, in later editions, they fixed it. I guess because everyone's like, what happened to the investigator? We liked it. But it was very confusing. And again, I would say that had a coherency issue, as well as a continuity problem. Because the character that went onto the moon in the very first edition was like a minor character that we only meet a couple times at the police station. It's weird. And suddenly, like, wait, is he on the moon? But why does he seem so... He is very different. He's very much his own character. And I was like, I think like they just got feedback in later editions and they're like, let's fix it. Also, it's confusing who's going to the moon, who's not, It makes sense. So, yes. Okay. So that is definitely something to edit for, is a variety of coherencies. Both just, do words actually make sense? Which honestly, if you use any of the software or apps that we've talked about today, and Tom has mentioned a few more in chat. What was it? Voice One or something is another phone app that you use.
Add Voice.
At Voice.
Yeah, on Android, Add Voice.
Is another one that we both use for having software read aloud to us. And it is free, or at least the versions we use are free. And that is another way to catch coherency issues, because you'll know it if suddenly your computer or phone is starting to talk gibberish to you. Wait, what does that mean? Why are you talking to me like that? Where is my copy? I need to quickly circle this. Let me put a bookmark in there. So that is another really important round, or multiple rounds. So like kind of the way I think of editing is, it's like a set of editing rounds you do. You always you'll do a grammar check anytime, you've typed new words. So like after your zero draft or your first draft, you're going to do a grammar and spell check, of course, just because you'd be surprised how many wrong ways you can spell words you think you know how to spell.
Your own lead character's first name.
I like to spell of O-V often. Yeah. And I've always had this problem since before I knew how to read. I was like, is of not spelled O-V? I'm serious, y'all. So I apparently, when I get very distracted in a hurry, like truly when I'm like that cat at the keyboard, I like to spell of O-V. And it totally feels right, by the way. It totally feels right. So spell check and grammar check are important. So there's that. And then there is reading aloud to did this all make sense? That's a separate round of edits for me. I mean, I'm not telling people how to do their process, but and then there is coherency. There's, you can be checking how your plot structures. All of those are different editing rounds, but it's like within a pod of editing. And then you do that once, and then you send it to readers of, so what do y'all think? Is this good, bad? I think Carrie's back.
Hello.
Hello. And then, so you send it off to readers, whether it's your alpha or your beta readers, or random people that you have guilted or paid to read it, whatever. Like you do,
Family
right?
members.
I'm just saying, people, neighbors who can't get out of it, and you're like, hey, you have 2 broken legs and no internet. How do I know you have no internet? Because I may know that you have no internet. So
Your friend, the delivery driver, who
Right?
needs a book for the car, and his sister won't leave him alone.
Right? And also he loves baked goods. I'm just saying. So he can be bribed. So after you get your feedback back in whatever form and whoever, and I do recommend, even if it's sensitivity reader or whatever, once you have your feedback, you then essentially do all of it over again. You do that whole pod of your editing over, where first you're going to add and take away. You're going to add stuff, fillers. Please explain who this character is at the beginning, whatever your feedback is. But now that you've added new words, and a lot of new words, then it's time to do the whole pod of editing all over again, whatever that is for you. And then to do this again. I mean, I sometimes, when I'm doing it, I feel like it's an exercise in insanity. Because I keep doing pretty much all the same behaviors, expecting different effects. And it feels like I have sanity by the tail. But everyone else assures me, no, all this makes sense. It's all coming together. And I'm like, I'm going to hold on to this tight and live in delusion land. Because the alternative is worse. Hey, Chandra. So that is how I would say my editing process in a nutshell is that I kind of have it as a pod system. With the exception of, it's only more toward after the second round of editing pod is where I would then definitely be working on opening and closings. So your very first page of your very first chapter, if you're talking about novel length, is so super important. So many people will decide whether they will even turn the page based on your first page. They will not give you 2 to 3 to 6 pages to make your case that you have a story worth spending time on. So that first page in particular, and really that first chapter, is so super important, but you can't really polish this turd till you're near the end. As much as you want to do it first. As much as you want to prioritize it, no, it never works out that way.
And that also is where reordering your scenes comes. Yeah.
I have to get
Go on.
my tenses fixed first. If I have tense shifts, I have to fix my tense shifts as I do my read through. And then I will go through and do all the beta notes and things like that. And then after I have done the major, insert chapter here, insert scene here, make this more spooky, then I will go through and start doing the line level after I've already added all the stuff. But I've already done the tenses first because they're my bane of existence.
Again, you need to make sure you feel comfortable going through it first. We all have our own priorities of which order do we edit things in, because it's hard to do scene level stuff if you're still just your brain and eyes keep getting magnetically attracted to this tense is wrong, or this spelling is wrong, or whatever. So fix whatever it is that most gets you, and then you kind of get out to the stuff that's easier and easier for you to ignore till you really need to think about it.
Yeah. I usually do a sweep through of the tenses first, and a sweep through of the tenses again last. And I still catch them. It's
I have, when I do a first draft, even though I sometimes sort of kind of outline, I still have chunks where it's in double parentheses. Something is supposed to happen here, but I can't figure out exactly how to write it.
I can't do that. I just hit a wall.
Oh no.
I kind of like write down a note of like the general idea of what I want to happen, and then it does help me move on. So when
Because it's like once you know the effects, and then it's you go on, because then you can kind of fill in from both sides.
Yeah.
I don't always stick to my outline, so I don't know if once I get through that, I will have an epiphany and be like, "Jump over here now, okay."
Oh, my
like
muse flies off her little hummingbird self into the idea meadow and like, look at this one, let's go. And it's like wrangling her back to my plot path. That happens a lot in my zero draft, but sometimes when I'm editing, I'll be going back and I'll be looking at my original draft and then at what I wrote, and then I'm like, no, I need to bring it back over to the path because this just Oz is a nice place to visit, but my character doesn't want to live there.
Yeah.
And so it's I feel you, Laura. I feel you about getting dragged off into the idea meadow.
But that's also why Gloria was talking about not worrying as much about that beginning and end. Like those are after you've got the story, path set up that you know where you want to end, and now you need to find where it begins because you need to grab your reader's attention. I mean, that's why we have flashbacks, because you first need your reader to be interested in the story, and then you can tell them why it's happening.
Yeah, like
let me see.
I prefer to I guess right from the middle out a little bit more, or right from the middle section, where the meat of the stuff is happening. And it's only later in edits that I start looking at crafting the end and then the beginning so that I feel it's compelling enough to keep reading, even though you've got to go to the bathroom super bad. Or even though, you've really got to go to sleep because you got a presentation tomorrow or whatever. Because I write to derail people's lives.
I do it the opposite. I write the end and all of the deaths first. Even the ones I'm not going to kill, I kill them first. And then I write the in between because, how attached can I get my reader to this character before he cacks? Please send your tears. I need them from my roses.
I prefer glass vials for purity's sake. I prefer no plastic.
Right? Like, you just purchase these little perfume bottles, put your tears in it, mail them to me. Okay, thanks.
I start at the beginning and go chronologically through my story.
Oh,
that's how I edit, but and that's only my my second or third editing rounds. I can't go chronological in my later editing rounds because I start skipping over things because my brain's like, read that part, and I start skipping.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was trying to find a really highlight heavy. So the highlighter I'm using is like a red. So like my pages will look like it's bleeding.
Yes.
That's all the parts.
I mean, it's going to grab your attention.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I'll have I couldn't think of a name, so
Tobias.
Highlight names and
I will, but I'm the kind of person though, I don't know if y'all were there during last Nano where I was like, to end a scene, I just wrote something very French, wine, cheese, French. Because I didn't know the lyrics to Champs-Élysées. So that was what I wrote, because all the characters in that scene were supposed to be singing robustly along. And that was what I was like, French, cheese, wine, French lyrics. Yeah, that was it. But it's just so I could move on. Because I knew I would come back. I put it in brackets so that it would stand out to me.
A lot of my highlight heavy bracket stuff in my stuff is where I have to put in like a spell. or something. And it's like, I will figure that out later. I just want to get the story down and then.
But I can ignore tenses because I'm Southern. I can ignore them for like ever. I don't have a problem fixing them. I just do not notice them. Like, I'm Southern, and apparently tenses are entirely interchangeable in the Deep South, just by how we actually talk. So
the first time I tried to do brackets was my adult horror reverse cannibal story, because my main character loves to listen to opera. I don't normally listen to opera. I've been to two of them, but I don't know the lyrics or anything. And so I was like, okay, opera quote here. But then I went to the Discord of the Women in Horror. I was like, do you guys know any opera that I could stick in here? And they're like, here's some for this type of tone, and here's some for this type of tone. And I was like, perfect! Paste! Keep going. Paste! Keep going. So I still haven't left a bracket yet in a first draft. I feel like it's something that would be very handy. My brain is just such a completionist that I can't do it.
I'm that way about finishing. Is I get on a task and it's like I have to finish the task, and it's like it doesn't matter what else is going on. My brain still gets mad that I'm not finishing the task. And so I totally understand that, but I don't know. My brain works differently now that I've had a stroke. So, I mean, I used to be one of these that had to go through all the way beginning to end every single time. And now I can't do that because I will skip parts.
I find when my brain starts skipping parts, that is a sign that I'm tired and I need to put it away long enough that I really forget what I'm reading, so I'm reading it with fresh eyes. And sometimes I don't want to do that, and I regret that.
If I have to read something 2 or 3 times to process, like whether I'm editing or if I'm reading a book,
oh my God,
I get to a point where I have to like reread a paragraph or a sentence to be like, what are words? That's when it's like, okay, it's time for bed.
Usually I put a draft away from Nano to camp. So a pretty fair few months. And sometimes not till like the next camp or the next Nano. So.
Yeah, because I find my best editing is when I have really forgotten just about everything I've written before. So that I can really edit it detached. And I'm really going to look at it as if I'm discovering the story for the first time. And that's when I am at my most analytical. It's very useful for me. Also, to be honest, part of my editing process, like I really found my editing process improved when I learned my own brain's circadian rhythm for editing. I do my best editing after 2 p.m. and before 8 p.m. every day. Oh, how dare you. Look at that. I am a face with a little cat. I can't operate. So I know. Put it back. Let's look at the puppy again. Yeah. What is that? A Saint Bernard? I don't know. Yeah.
I have to let her out. I'll be right back.
Okay. So I find that knowing that, okay, this day / week / month / quarter, whatever I'm editing, changes my work schedule of how I'm going to tackle it, because I have found that there is just no point in me trying to edit at 10 a.m. My brain is not in editing mode yet, and it is for nothing. It just draws. And I do think there is something to be said for figuring out one's own circadian rhythm for editing. Like, just figure out what is your schedule. I've known a couple people who told me they do their best editing at 4 a.m., 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. every day, and that they're really not good at editing any other time of the day.
You know how much coffee I would need
I
at that time in the morning?
I agree with you.
Yeah, just stick an IV in me.
Yeah, like, good Lord. But, I mean, if that's your body's natural rhythm to do your most effective, useful editing, so be it. Figure yourself out. Like, versus, I've had a couple people tell me after I've talked to them about you need to figure out your circadian rhythm for this. A couple people have, like, told me, I think my rhythm is 8 to 11 p.m. Is that crazy? And I'm like, it's only crazy if you ignore it. Because, like, look, if your best editing time is 8 to 11 p.m. and you can afford to stay up that late, I know some people, you know, their schedule doesn't allow that, but when you can, do what feels right for your body, because your body will tell you. It has meant, like, like my 2 to 8 p.m. window, the prime, like, this is how you know I love you, is if I will edit for you between 4 and 6 p.m. That is the golden time. That is when I am an editing god. And everything is genius like, I see it and it's all clear and I know how to fix things. And I also am super fast during this time. So I save the most important work for editing between 4 and 6 p.m. because that's when my best time is, pretty much of the entire day, y'all. Like, same for writing, actually, for me. Like, if I'm writing between 4 and 6, this is the good stuff. All other stuff is dross. But figuring out your circadian rhythm can be very useful to maximize what little time you do have for editing. So just want to, like, throw that out there as something to think about in the future of, when does the editing really come together for your brain? Have you noticed a relatively consistent time? Like, is it maybe after dinner or after lunch or before breakfast?
5 a.m.
And it's not necessarily anything to do with your writing time.
Or your sleep schedule. Because I've had a couple people tell me, this is BS, Glory. I don't want to be getting up this early to do editing. I hate editing. I'm like, if you want the editing to go well and be easy, then yeah, that's what you got to do. I don't know what to tell you.
Another thing that when you're editing, like, is they talk about balancing the draft and balancing the dialogue. Is Scrivener has a tool for this now, and Microsoft Word is supposed to be getting a tool for this. And I think there might be one in Pro Writing 8 where you can actually go through and change the color of the dialogue of specific characters to see how much action they're getting, how much they're saying. So you can see as you read through the book, when you're editing, who is getting the page time. And sometimes your side characters come out to be getting more page time than your main character. And that is something that when you're developmental editing that you need to kind of look at and fix, because it's going through and your side character's getting more page time than your main character. Your side character gets more dialogue than your main character. It's a structure, unless your main character is the strong silent type, probably shouldn't be that way, and it might be something that you need to fix.
The Jasker problem.
Jasper?
Jasker with a K. From what was it? Everyone
Xena the
was
Warrior
enjoying
Princess.
watching.
Oh. Yes.
So let's say we've gone through our first 40 rounds of editing, got it back from our betas, done the next set of editing, got it back from our betas again. Now we're ready to query.
Mm-hmm.
So you start getting the unhappy responses, the no responses. How much editing do you do before you resubmit, or do you just look for a different avenue?
Well, I would say, as someone who was queried for years with my mother, when before my mother just went ahead and published our cookbook, when I say we indie published, I mean we literally made the covers ourselves. We literally published it. But we queried for a couple years, and every year sitting down with the latest edition of Writer's Market, which was like a huge tome back then. Like, you could accidentally help a small furry animal shuffle off this mortal coil by accidentally dropping it on them. Just saying. It may have accidentally happened once. I know, it was not a kitten. It was more of a pest situation, but I didn't think it would kill it. Anyway, we had to explain things to the librarian of what happened to the book. They're hardcovers. Okay. Anyway, my point just merely being that the way I look at it, and I'm not trying to say that, I think my way is the only way, but just from my perspective, it is this. It is important to learn how to write a very good query letter so that your query letter, or the quality of your query letter, or the readability really of your query letter, is not the problem, but rather that particular publisher, editor, or agent is simply not interested in what you are pitching. So it is important to hone the craft of writing query letters. And that is a whole process right there of essentially learning a sub-craft within your craft. And there are plenty of people who would happily help you with it, including other editors and people who've also queried themselves, and many a website will be happy to offer guidance on that. But once you know, okay, I can write a good query letter. This is enjoyable to read. It's fast. This letter is a fast read. I've covered all the information I need to, and it was highly readable, the query letter itself. Then it's a matter of, if they don't like it, move on. Move on. Change what you can, and if you can't change this thing based on the feedback, move on to a new publisher, new agent, new editor, because there are so many fish in the sea. Also, indie publishing is a thing now.
A big thing.
And not like what my mom and I did with, my mother worked for an industrial real estate agent at the time. She was his office manager. And she convinced him to rent from a business machine company a color printer, a color photocopier printer.
Color laser printer.
Color laser printer. And a book binding machine. And we would go in after dinner and literally publish, create from start to finish, 50 to 75 copies of the book in a night, like little book elves.
Why don't you tell them what you did to design your cover?
Well, okay, so we had limited options, and we weren't that creative. We didn't have a lot of drawing skills because, hand-eye coordination. So the book was a cookbook, right? It was called Eating on the Cheap. That was my mother's title. Obviously, even after all these decades, I still have a difference of opinion. But anyhow, so we were like, what can we make that will convey that this is a cookbook about food, but about cost-conscious food prep? How will we convey this? Also, how will we make it where you're like, oh, this is so approachable, I shall keep flipping it? Because that's the point of the cover, right? Is that they want to flip it open. And the idea that we came up with was to do a grocery bag cover. But every design we actually hand drew and didn't look good to us. We didn't think it looked pretty enough. It didn't look high quality enough, because this was the mid 90s, and good printing was just coming out. They'd moved beyond 4-color printing. And so we came up with the idea of we would use literal grocery bags that we would cut down to size and then print it in red print, the title and everything, and send. So we had to like hand cut all these grocery bags from Winn-Dixie, just the backs. We could get 2 covers out of each one. And we'd have to hand cut them by, what was it? What was it? It was 8 by 5.5 inches, I think.
A guillotine.
And we cut it that size and then feed them through. We had to 1 by 1 feed the covers through the color laser printer to print it in red, eating on the cheap by, L. Patty Fink and Glory Fink. And so on. We fit, and then that's what we use for our cover, which we then would cut with the rest of the text block. And on top of that, we put a clear plastic cover for safety, because that was like really popular at the time, was cookbooks that you wouldn't ruin the cover if it got wet. That was like a big deal. So, that was what we did. Is that what you wanted me to talk about?
I love that.
It paid the rent for 8 months. We sold 500 copies. We literally handcrafted 500 copies over 8 months, and it paid the rent for 8 months, which was saying a lot, because it was either that or eviction and homelessness for our whole family.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Editing your query letters is I was lucky enough to get some advice when I first started querying about individual query letters, about you don't just write one query letter for a project and send it out to everyone you want to see the project. That for every letter you send out, it needs to be for that agent, for that publisher. It needs to be designed. And so editing your query letters is also very important. And when you get to the point that you're sending them like chapters, they're like, oh, I want the first 50 pages. I want, however much they ask for. Or if they even ask for the whole book, as happened to me, I had someone that literally was like, we'd like to see the series. And I was like, awesome. So I sent them, and I told them, I'm like, only the first one is edited. The rest of them, I haven't anything with, they're just the roughs. And they sent me, they're like, well, we really like it. We don't want to reject you, but you need to change this. And the thing they wanted me to change, Gloria and Tom know what I'm talking about, is not something that I was willing to change for the integrity of the book. Because these 2 side characters, they had to stay the same for some of the plot points later on. But it was one of the things of I wasn't willing to change it. And this was back in 2018. Oh my gosh. I have Dobby 2.0. Chandra, if you're watching, I'm sending this to you.
Show us again. Look at this face. This is the face of needing cuddles and attention.
So cute.
Look at that widow face. Oh, I wish I could come pick it up. Oh. I'm a sucker for mackerel tabbies.
Look how spotty.
Yes, I love it. It's just you're 1,000 miles too far away.
But
I saw the little black kitty and I was like, "Man,
yes,
the black kitty has stripes too.
Oh, I love it when they have like dark
He's
stripes.
black with like charcoal stripes.
Yes, I love it, like a jaguar. Like,
yeah,
I love it when they're like that. It's so cool, and they're kind of rare. Yes, most precious kitties.
When you're in the editing phase and into the querying phase, when you get suggestions back, you can, if you start editing your book to every one of those suggestions at the cost of the character and the story, you're going to end up hating the world you created. And I had a book that I was working on with the editor, and they had assigned me a new one, and she was like, well, you need to take all of these references out, and you need to take all of this stuff out. And I was like, okay, let me write you a copy with all of these things taken out that have to do with the main character's personality trait. And it completely changed the tone of the book. It changed the perception of the main character, and it went from being the overcomer fiction that I often write, to being just this person that was very depressed, very negative, and her personality evolved into something that was not someone that she chose bitter instead of better, by taking all of these little traits out. And so the thing that is really important for new writers and old writers and every writer to realize is that there is a point at which you're editing where you have to stand for your story. You have to stand for your characters.
Yes.
They have to be real. They have to be three-dimensional. And because if you just keep hacking away at them, to make this editor happy or this beta reader happy or whatever, first of all, you're going to end up with a story that even you don't want to read, and you wrote it. And you're going to end up, it's going to make you hate writing. It's going to make you hate what you're creating, because you can't make everyone happy all of the time. You cannot please everyone all of the time. And there are going to be people who are going to go, well, if it was my character, I would have done this. Yay! Go write your book. This is my book. My characters.
Yes.
I still remember, I definitely had a difference of opinion about, as a beta reader of one of your stories with another beta reader. And we truly had diametrically opposed views about the way a little, tertiary character was treated. That I thought, no, this shows a lot of the main character's humanity and helps reinforce their compassion. And the other beta reader was like, this is overdone. This is, restating too much the obvious and is slowing down the story. And I'm like, I don't think the character's the same without it. And so it's every reader has their own perspective. And you as the author do have to kind of be the final arbiter of, but who are these characters in their own heads? And, with the editors at publishers, they are trying to get a product that they feel confident in marketing. It's not necessarily a product you can make. So it is always a kind of be careful. Take it with understand this is what they feel they can market. It's not necessarily going to actually be what you're making.
Yeah, and actually it was the first thing that I stated, that you needed to change these two characters. That was actually the reason that I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to publish with you, because I can't do this. I can't do this for the sake of the entire series, the entire world of this book. I can't change the gender of this character.
Yeah.
And, and it was that kind of opportunity that you dream of. And I passed. And, literally some of my early on AuthorTube friends were like, you've lost your mind. And I was like, yes, but if I had done this, it would have just been another cookie cutter Christmas Hallmark special thing. And no. So it's hard. It's hard to make that sacrifice of choosing when not to edit.
Yep.
Because in the end, you're going for a cohesive whole product. You have to be careful about getting too stuck in that minutia in your edits and losing, what ends what was it you said? It was like 12 lines about, involving the therapist that changes how the character kind of self-perceives and the audience can perceive the character.
Yeah, over one book, it was about a dozen different inserts of 1 or 2 lines.
Mm-hmm.
And it completely alters the perception of the character of someone who is just letting stuff happen to her to someone who is actively trying to take a role in their own recovery. And it doesn't seem like much. It doesn't seem, it's like, what's 200 words in the course of an entire book? But editing out or leaving in those 200 words sprinkled through the book can make all the difference in the perception of your book.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to truly know your characters, even your smaller characters, so you understand essentially understand your own character's integrity. What can you play around with for them, and what is a hard no? I always think of the Kenny Regis song, know when to hold him and know when to fold him. Know when to walk away and know when to run. But the truth is, you're only going to get that with experience. So in the end, go in there and get messy. Because there's no perfect answer
And
on
save
this.
all the old copies and
Save all your
iterations.
stuff. Hoard it.
Every copy, even
You are
the one
forbidden
you wrote
from Marie
in children's
Kondoing
crayon in a
your crap.
restaurant napkin.
I will write you a note.
One of my
that you are forbidden from throwing out all your old writing craft stuff. I will write you the note. I am excusing you from Marie Kondoing your writer craft right now. Please don't.
I always remember Douglas Adams' last unfinished book, and even all of his friends and the people that worked closely with him on his story writing are like, we don't know if this book was going to become another Hitchhiker's Guide or another Dirk Gently book. It has elements of both. It's hard to tell at this point which direction it would end up taking. In editing and in rewriting, they would, Douglas would find his story. But yeah, it's you take that direction, you take that path, and you see, does this work? And you go, nope, I'm going to go the other route. I've just checked that path. I've checked ahead. It looked good at the fork, but nope, doesn't end up well. We're going the other direction. That's fine. That's not a loss. That's not a problem. For all you know, you may use that first path you trailblazed for another story at a later date.
Agreed.
There's so many different ways to use every scene. I was telling Glory, our neighbor was telling me about the worst book he had read in a long time, and it was at the end of this series. I know most people here probably won't get it, but it was a Warhammer 40K series story that he really enjoys everything about 40K. And for real quick, so there's humans, then there's the Space Marines, and they're like, on average 8 feet tall, plus armor, so they end up at 10. And then above them are what are called Primarchs, that are 10 feet tall humanoids with even more armor. And somehow this writer had decided to essentially put a Primarch into ductwork, into air ducts, and tried to write the story of
Die Hard.
Die Hard.
We wrote Die Hard with
just
the largest creatures in this, largest humanoid creatures.
Yeah.
Not the smallest, not humans in a ductwork, which barely fit. But ones that are
And so multiple times he goes into ductwork.
And they're not just taller, their Primarchs are wider as well. They're walking appliances. They're 4 feet wide.
And he's just like, his head hurts every time he reads this section.
So mad. Our neighbor is so mad every time he's reading this. He's like, stop trying to. It's like,
yeah.
Like the writer did not even bother reading the Bible of Warhammer 40K, to keep continuity for the species. This writer was like, did the writer only have 3 weeks to submit a manuscript? What happened? And And he's like, well, you're getting Die Hard. That's what you get.
Research doesn't end when editing begins.
Amen. Amen.
You research
Yeah.
and research, and even when you've submitted the book for publish, you're still thinking, I might need to check that. Oh.
Right. I just need to check this just in case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yes. And on that note, so you could just think about 10-foot tall, 4-foot wide humanoids climbing through human-sized ductwork. I'm just going to let you think about that while we go on a 10-minute break where you could have a snack. You could go for a little walk. You could write a little. You could pet a furry kitten or turtle or whatever you do. You know, baby.
A furry turtle.
Yeah, you could have a furry turtle. A baby. You know, human babies are real.
What?
And maybe you have one available. Maybe you don't. I don't know your business. So I'm just throwing these things out. But we will be back in approximately 10 minutes, where we will wrap up with our last thoughts about editing. The joys of editing. We're here to bring you to our club of editing.
Nikki, this is Pris. Pris is 3 months old.
Yep, and we'll respond in kind. So, and on that note, we will see y'all in approximately 10 minutes. beep, 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 boo. Maggie's over here torturing all the rest of us with animals we don't have. Look at that. Do you see how repentant she looks? The answer is not at all. I'm just saying. She's like, oh, what a shame. I want that mackerel tabby so bad. Hold on, Maggie.
I have all the cutes. I have all the cuteness.
Look at that sweet little baby chihuahua.
I swear that pup was actually smiling at the screen.
I know. The chihuahua's probably 25 years old. You know. I get it.
She's 12.
Okay. What a sweetheart.
Right?
Oh, I keep back the doggies.
I want them all. Just set me up a petting zoo outside your house, and I'll just come and pet them all.
Oh, you know I got enough critters for that.
I know you do.
I even have chickens who will sit in your lap and let you pet them.
Those are the best, because I like those.
My velociraptors, as my family calls them.
They look, y'all. They are dinosaurs. I'm just saying. So yeah, out in private chat, we do the Young Frankenstein quotes.
Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Why would you help it? It works.
I'm not surprised.
Yep. Yes, Tom came into my room to discuss the third act, and I'm like, I keep pointing at the TV screen because I can see Maggie with the kittens, and then like multiple kittens, and then the dog, and I was like, we're just delightful derailment. But what was it?
Was that cheese?
We had a debate over what is she feeding the kitten.
French bread.
Okay.
French bread with homemade butter.
Nice.
Oh yeah, that'll get a kitten.
Yeah, that'll get a kitten.
That'll get a human.
So good.
It'll get this human. I don't know about the rest of y'all, but it'll get
Just found an issue with one of my files, so
oh no.
Having to steal a texture from a different file. Hopefully it works.
I can do it.
Gosh.
Tom, what was it that you wanted to talk about? Because all I can feel in my head is kittens and puppies.
So I was thinking about bringing up, since this is the end, the subject that will get you kicked out of writer groups.
Yeah, they will.
Get you slapped in person.
They do. It's true.
Let's talk about reasonable expectations for editing pace.
Maggie is not part of the reasonable expectations. Maggie is not labeled under, oh no, that's perfectly normal. No. You don't have a stroke.
Maggie is what happens after you've been doing this for 20 plus years.
And then go, hey, let me publish 10 books in a year. That's not under like normal, reasonable expectations, particularly for beginners.
Maggie's what happens when you take an obsessive compulsive overachieving caffeinated hummingbird and go whack right on the head with the 2x4 and say, guess what? You can't do anything anymore. Sit in your chair and think about that. And then the brain is like, but if I'm thinking, then I need to put the things out. And that's how you end up.
Relatable.
And the brain starts thinking about smacking so many things with 2x4s, as I've now read with her characters.
The brain smacks back.
I mean, really, no one's safe. And it's, it's definitely her own style. And as long as you go in knowing that, it's good stories. When you're surprised versus being surprised at, why is everyone dropping like a Game of Thrones episode? Who's going to make it through to, is anyone going to be at the end of the story? Or is this just I showed you these characters so you can appreciate the lifespans of my main characters?
Yes.
Yes.
It's not my fault I kill planets.
Oh. Way to just totally brush off any
And
responsibility.
platoons. I mean, now thinking about it, since I've brought them up in the same, time span, I'm now thinking like, I think your Sword and Planet story might actually be really good in a Warhammer universe.
Oh, I would love
I think that
do.
crowd would actually really enjoy your story.
I would love to do the Huntsman in Warhammer. That would be
Mhm.
awesome. Or even Skyrim. That would
Because
be.
thinking about it, it's like, yeah, it is. Yeah. Again, it's that same kind of feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to do that. And the fact that the main character is walking across the battlefield looking for his brother, and there's so much blood on the ground that it's squishing up around the blades of grass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like that feels like
ain't
Warhammer
kosher.
right there.
So,
There's nothing kosher in Warhammer.
but yeah, of like, so what we talked about in the break was, so in other creative endeavors, like for instance photography, which is what we are very familiar with, because Tom and I are both professional photographers as well, is we call it workflow. And but elsewhere you could call it the creative process. There is a certain, so the way it was explained to me, so let me go over and explain. Hello, Eva, and also hello, Charlie. I saw that you came in earlier, but we were hot in discussions at the time. So when Tom and I were both taking digital photography classes together many years ago, one of our instructors was talking about workflow and how you need to figure out your workflow. And I thought that he meant like process. What is your process for processing your photos? Oh, hello, sweet baby. I thought that's what it was, but it turns out, and I have to be honest, I maybe like literally this afternoon just found out it's not. But because I didn't know that you could actually set up your workflow in Photoshop to have it do all the things in the order you want to do it. So what I used to do over 10 years ago was I wrote out my workflow as a list of things, and I would keep it right here by my mouse to tell me in what order I should process each photo that I was editing.
That's what I do when I'm starting a new type of sequence at work.
Yeah. I would have my list, and I would do each, and I would open up each, thing, or go into each section, histogram, all the things. Make sure that I was in RAW for editing, and there truly is no substitute. RAW is wonderful. But that was my workflow. I had written it out manually, and then I would click on it manually. I didn't know that because we had the same mentor, Tom and I did. We actually had all the same mentors actually in photography. They got very different results from us, but anyway, that's a whole nother thing. It's fun to see people kind of lose their mind a little. But that what the mentor was actually talking about was setting up workflow in Photoshop. But to me, it was just like, oh, well, this is your process. This is the order of that you do your operations. No big deal. There's a certain truth in that of it's whatever your creative process is, whatever your medium you're working in, you have your workflow. And it can change month to month or project to project. It is still valid. You need to take notes, though, so you remember what you're doing. I'm saying this now. You're going to not do it. And then years from now, you're going to realize you needed to start taking notes a long time ago in order to get better at it. If you want to accelerate in a skill, any skill ever, you need to make notes regularly. I cannot stress this enough. It's something that even I was unable to actually get through the minds of regular college students when I was trying to teach them photography. Of please take notes. And the answer was they would do it for 2 to 3 weeks. And then they would be done and they wouldn't do it anymore. And I'm like, you're not going to accelerate as a photographer in skill if you don't keep taking notes. Because part of it is the act of note taking, and part of it is going back over and going, oh, that's what I was doing, when you actually want to replicate something or duplicate something again. And you may think, well, I don't need that in writing because I constantly have a digital, screen of what I'm doing. I don't need to take notes. No, Michelle. Yeah, you need notes. They could be Post-it notes. They could be in a notebook. When I was a young teacher, a new teacher, one of the things that they really recommended, again, if you want to accelerate as a teacher quickly, is that every day after all your students are on their buses or their home, whatever, whenever they're gone, and you have the classroom to yourself, is you go over this little template form about how the day went. What went well, what didn't, what you wanted to do different next time, and anything else you wanted to write. And they're like, you think, oh, I'll do this. And then what's going to happen is a month after you start teaching, you'll be too tired. And you'll be like, no, I'm not going to do it. And then you're going to get out of the habit of it. And it's going to take you years to realize that you're kind of behind some of the other teachers who started at the same time you did or started after you. And the reason why is because you didn't keep making a little daily log of your day. Even though it only takes you 5, maybe 10 minutes max, that is the difference between teachers who become Teacher of the Year and are awarded and the teachers who never quite catch up. It's not just teachers, y'all. It's everybody in anything. This is the way humans learn skills. So Spence says, what if your memory lets go of nothing ever? Mr. Spence, speaking from something deep within himself, made of anxiety and despair. Okay.
That was me before my stroke. And that was the reason I started journal keeping, was to write it down. And when a memory would come back and start cycling, I would write it down so I could have it in a place outside my brain.
You had to offload it. It is a very effective way to offload it. And you can tell yourself afterwards, no, we're not going over that again. I've already written it down. It's been saved for posterity. It's in, the inorganic brain, if you will. I've written it down. I can reread it anytime I want. So I don't have to keep it up here, rotating on the fresh rack. But yeah, any skill you want to accelerate at, any skill at all, ever, you need to make daily notes. If you wrote that day, then you need to do a 5 to 10 minute journaling of your thoughts about writing that day. And I know, because I hate writing, because did I mention dyslexia and learning disability? I also have dysgraphia. It's physically painful for me to handwrite. And it's physically painful for me to type. So there's no hope for me. So, but yet, I want to get better because I am an overachiever. It's a terrible condition. I really wish none of you had to deal with it, but being an overachiever is a fatal terminal flaw. Spence says, y'all should see the I told you so face I'm giving him right now. Excellent. We're all here with the I told you so. But yes, we all can relate to the anxiety. We're all in there with you. We're all in the same little cauldron, boiling and bubbling away as we just stew in our own juices. So, but I am going on the theory that you want to improve in your writing, no matter where you are in your writing journey and your storytelling journey. And here's the proof I have that you wish to improve in your skill. You are watching this right now, whenever right now is. Unless you are one of my 2 friends who occasionally feels guilty and watches these shows just to show that you still support and love me, unless you are one of those 2 people, you are here, you are watching this or listening to this because you actually want to improve your writing to please yourself and so that you feel better about the work you put out. So if you want that, which I'm assuming you do if you're watching this, unless, like I said, you're one of my 2 friends who are watching this out of guilt, then I call people out who I love and who love me. I'll call them out. I know why you're watching this. But unless you are those 2 people, it's time to start taking notes. If note taking is not part of your process, it's time to find a place where it fits. You need to make notes at the end of your day when your brain is still fresh, rather than the next day. Every day you forget to make a note about what you've learned that day from writing, even if it was simply, and I quote, "I really enjoyed writing today. I liked how the characters were super sassy to each other, and I feel vindicated somehow, but I don't know why." That's literally what I wrote one time.
Nice.
You know what? It counts, because at a certain point, writing notes at the end of your day about the skill you're trying to improve in, it doesn't matter as much the contents of your notes as much as the process of doing it. What does it say? Hold on, let me make the...
Those are the evil words.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to finish before I clicked on them.
Eva said... Oh, okay, sorry. I was like, what would... Eva
Finish
says...
what you were saying, Glory, about making notes.
Yes, exactly. I was listening to a random non-TED TED Talk that spoke of white cultures and how upbringings often include no conflict, sweep it under the rug. So by the time someone comes up with conflict, it is often a mountain of things, a burst. So many with these upbringings see any conflict as a layer covering many more issues, can make it editor feedback rough.
I think this goes along with what we were talking about, the voice you hear your imposter syndrome in. The voice you hear in your imp is similar to this, because all criticism, we're now in a place in our culture where all criticism is a personal attack. No matter how benevolently it is stated, people take it as a personal attack. And that's something about when you're having someone else edit your work, you can't take it personal. It's like the responding to negative reviews.
I think also, though, sometimes the way people phrase feedback, it can be phrased in a very personal way rather than in a what I would consider a more professional, detached manner. So it's just more of, I think our culture doesn't really know how to give constructive feedback without making it a personal attack many times. I can't tell you the last time I have received professional feedback. You know how you get your yearly evaluations? I can't tell you the last time I've ever received professional feedback where it wasn't about my character rather than about my actual policies and procedures and doing my job. It's never about my policies and procedures. And then the one time the feedback...
And also, how about why did you wait an entire year?
Why did you wait a year to give me this feedback? I really wish you told me when it happened. But also, and then the one time, y'all, it was about an actual thing that had happened to, in my work professionally. It was about a thing that was entirely out of my control, i.e. the Postal Service. Why are you giving me feedback about how the Postal Service is a hot mess? I have no control over this, because if I did, I would be a god that actually gets shit done. Y'all. And then I wouldn't be listening to such ridiculous feedback as that. So, yes.
I have paid for feedback for one of my short stories. It was submit it, and if you want to get feedback as well as a yay or nay, then you pay a fee because they have no monies. So
Sure.
I was like, yes, I want feedback. So they said no, but they said it was amazingly interesting and very different from what they normally see. But they had a couple little things here and there, and they were very interesting points of things that I could, like in a couple of sentences, I could flesh out a little bit more and stuff. And so that was really awesome. But the first time I ever got feedback from a critique partner, so this was like 3 years ago, oh, it hurt so bad. I was like, oh no, I couldn't look at it for a couple of days. But now, as I just get rejections here, there, and yonder all the time for my stuff that I'm submitting to anthologies, it's just like, yeah, whatever. So,
Yeah.
like, you get used to it, and it becomes
And, like,
less personal when you see what it can do for you.
Okay, so
I
when I was a kid, you know, like elementary and middle school, I used to be, you know, afraid of feedback, even with my overly critical mother. I still had, I can't imagine where that trauma came from. And one of the things my father used to do with me that actually helped me was when he's like, okay, we're going to see what the teacher wrote on your paper. All right. First, what are the worst things we can think of that the teacher could possibly have said about this? Let's get it out of our system now. And we would say the things. Sometimes the things my father came up with, I was like, oh, you know, pearl clutching, like that didn't even occur to me. But once we got out of our system, anything that I read that the teacher had written, you know, for this essay or whatever, was never that bad. I promise you, it was never that bad. And I don't know how to explain, but sometimes that's actually a really helpful way to essentially sort of gird your loins for if you are dreading feedback. But, you know, you need the feedback, is to, like, especially with a friend or someone, even if it's over Zoom or StreamYard Backstage, of, okay, before I read it, what are the worst things a human being could possibly say to me about this? And then get it out of your system so that whatever you do get, it cannot be that bad. And it's actually, I know it sounds odd, but it can be a very helpful and heartwarming exercise. Believe me, I know how is this heartwarming? It really does help you, or at least try it out and see if it makes you feel better before you really, right before. You don't do it like a day or two before. Like, no, this has to be literally done 5 minutes before. It can be very helpful for coping with that dread before feedback.
Another thing is, a lot of people, they see feedback on their writing through the goggles of their personal baggage. And that seems like a complicated thing to say, but if you had toxic parents, if you had toxic relationships, if you are used to basically being the dog that gets beat, even the most constructive, well-meaning criticism, because you look at it through those goggles, you see it as much, much, much worse than it actually is. And training, and this is something I had to do, was train myself to listen and read feedback like I was reading a scientific paper on the pharmacological effects of some new medication. You have to look at, it's not a critique of your work, it is a critique of a work.
Mm-hmm.
And because we all, unfortunately, we see the world through the rose color or poop colored glasses that have been handed down to us for our whole life. And being able to peek around the glasses to read something that you need, that will help you, is sometimes very, very hard, especially for younger creators, for new writers, because they're putting their heart and soul into this. And even the slightest, you're using the most common name of the female lead in the genre right now. You might consider choosing a different name. Can come off as, this is the worst book I've ever read, drop dead and die. And that's not what is meant at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so another part of the editing process, the more you get into it, is being able to read the critiques without freaking out. There's a lot of authors who will not read their reviews. They will not read their critiques. They just won't do it. And I do. And I, like, Tom has called me on the phone and we've talked about, well, this and that and everything. And I don't mind that at all. I will take the critiques.
And Tom was hesitant at first.
I know
And I
he
was
was
like,
he
you
was
need to tell Maggie, stop telling me, Tom.
he was so
How many
uncomfortable
times?
about calling me because he was
Did not wanna
afraid
call.
about how I would take it, because we're friends and don't want to break that. But no, it's a very hard thing to do.
And people take things very personally that you
They
don't
do.
expect.
And you know, and
Yes.
it's like, you know, and it's very, very hard to, you know, look at the world and have all of this past stuff and then get this piece of paper about something that you worked so hard on and it not be personal. But that's the way you've got to read them. It's the same rule. You critiques, you don't read them as being personal, and reviews, you never respond other than thank you for your time.
Yep.
Those
Even
are
though.
but as that's part of the writer process.
Yep.
But yeah, like I was gonna mention of, you know, Glory's before mentioned, slightly against Eva's wishes that, you know, Eva helped her with a story, and part of the reason Eva didn't want it mentioned that she helped is Eva's been burned so many times as, you know, an editor of
Eva has
just
since
giving
told us that
people
we can talk
feedback
about
on their
this publicly,
stories.
by the way. She told us it was okay later.
Yeah.
Like, we're not out here to like tell
Yeah.
Eva secrets. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, but
yeah.
the part of the reason she originally had been like that was a lot of times she has been an editor for others and given feedback. They've taken it as this very personal thing versus no, we're both talking about a product you're making for others to enjoy. Here's from my experience what I'm seeing. That's all I'm talking about.
Taking feedback was very hard for
You know.
me because at first, because like Maggie was saying, the imp was the voice of a high school English teacher. We had to write a research paper, and she held mine up as an example of what not to do.
Oh no,
That's
terrible.
That hurt for so
Yes.
long.
That's so destructive.
Yeah, when you're walking to your next class crying, and then you have the teacher of that class go and bitch out the teacher that did that to you. I was like, yay! But anyway, but yeah, that can have an impact.
It can. I mean,
I dreaded any kind of feedback for so long, and I did very little asking for it when I was first writing my book series. And even now, like I've sent it to Kat and Charlie right now, and I'm like, because Mrs. So-and-so is in my head going, they're going to hate it. Why did you try?
A teacher did that to my mom's art, and she will not do art anymore.
And again,
but
like,
she's decent at it.
I can see where people have concerns about giving feedback because they're afraid there'll be that person who is harsh enough to kill the joy of this creative work when, like, that's the last thing I think anybody, at least anybody here, anybody in the chat wants to do is to destroy the enjoyment of creating these stories that we do. Nobody wants to be that. And nobody wants to accidentally even. Because, like, look, sometimes it's just accidental. Like, okay, I've told y'all before. I've talked to Everett about this before. The very first time Everett had a composition that was being performed publicly that I could attend, this was many years ago now. It was at, it was part of a festival. I was able to go here in town. It was a saxophone quartet. I was so excited to go. It was free also. Super excited to go. Like, I get to see my friend's composition being performed, and it's free, so I have to pay. I was super excited. And Everett, like, his was one of the very last ones. So it wasn't like 5-10 minutes after his piece ended, and it was a 20-minute piece. It ended, And then they were sitting right next to me. We all sat together, you know, because we were friends. And he was like, so, and his wife, Cheryl, asked me, so, what do you think of it? And I was like, oh, that was the finest murder music I have heard since Columbo. I meant this as a compliment. His face fell to his feet, and I felt like a monster. It was not the feedback he was expecting. And the very first thought, I was like, oh my God, I've ruined this for him. I've ruined this experience for him. I've ruined this piece he composed. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I've ruined this. I'm a monster. And it was me like trying to give him a little space, but then coming back and going, Everett, I think murder music is great. I grew up watching reruns of Columbo. I was just thinking how I don't have any music to murder characters to. And I was then, while listening to your composition, thinking, oh, this would be the best ever. Please don't think that, like, I think. And he's like, good. Because I was like, at first I thought you were saying, like, Everett murders people to this music. And I'm like, oh. Didn't even occur to me that either. So neurodivergent. But it was like, thankfully, we were able to talk it out, smooth it over that evening. But it did. Look, he did eventually admit to me that for about 3-4 days, he didn't try to compose anymore because he just couldn't get it out of his head. This does happen. And so I understand the other side where we sometimes feel reticent about giving feedback, because what if we're the person that kills the joy for someone, even if it's only temporary? We definitely don't want to be that way. But then sometimes people are like, no, just give it to me. And, you know, you're like, but do you want me to let you know that I think this is the finest murder story in all of, you know, I mean, you know, I don't, and you're like, there's no murder in it. What are you talking about? Like, oh, this was like an arch villain, and I thought they were on their way to a murder. You ended it with them like leaving the house. So I thought it's time. You know, also feedback I have given. And the character was apparently going to the grocery store, not to a murder. There's a reason Corey doesn't.
I don't know. Going to the grocery store can be like committing murder against your own soul.
I feel this way. And I was like, and I asked the writer, do you not enjoy grocery shopping? Now, I personally love grocery shopping. I also grocery shop in the middle of the night, so I don't have to interact with people. Otherwise, I would hate grocery shopping. People make grocery shopping terrible. But, yeah, they were like, yeah, no, I hate grocery shopping.
I worked in retail for 16 years. I know.
Exactly. Versus if I could get like the grocery store alone to myself, I absolutely love grocery shopping. I love cataloging everything in the store in my head.
It makes me so sad that Walmart is no longer open at 1:00 in the morning.
Same. Amen.
Yes.
How many times have we talked about it?
I literally talked a couple days ago to my neighbor on that same ride about would he do some personal shopping for us at Walmart, because it's so tiring to go there during the day.
And they specifically leave things off the order format, so you have to go into the store.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
for like curbside stuff?
Yeah. Everything that's in the grocery
Yeah.
store is not on the app to get pickup or delivery. They do it on purpose.
The kind of dog food that my dogs have to eat because it's dye-free is not in the curbside.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go in every time. But
yep.
But another thing, like playing on the grocery store angle, check what aisle you're in when you're asking for critiques or beta reading or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you give someone who likes fluffy cozies, mysteries, romances, if you give someone who likes cozies one of Laura's soup stories,
Sibling soup.
This soup, her brother will do nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Her bone's really this color, and now he's soup. They're not going to give you the feedback they want. It's like, my husband likes Clive Cussler. He's a huge Clive Cussler fan. It's literally the only author he's ever read, because he's not a reader. he's never read any of my stories because he's not a fantasy fan. He's not a science fiction fan. He does like adventure, but I don't write the genres he reads, and he's really, really not a werewolf fan. So, I would never stop. I would never ask him to read one of my stories and give me feedback because I know I would be handing my book to an audience that didn't want it.
Yes.
And that's something that everybody's like, oh, read my book, please. And I had some volunteer beta readers for one of my series, and I don't care what the aesthetic is. I will put trigger warnings at the beginnings of chapters.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I have had a couple betas who have had to bow out because of some of the topics. I mean, if you're a child abuse victim, you don't want to read about somebody, even if it's just one part of a chapter in the book about what they went through. You can read about them recovering, but you can't read about what they went through. And that's a very understanding thing. If you are writing military fiction, you are not going to ask someone who reads animal rescue books and fluffy peace, love, and joy to read your Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
And so that's another part of the editing process is finding your target audience to do your critique reads, to do your beta reads, to do your alpha reads. Because handing the book off to the wrong person and getting their feedback on how much they hate it is going to do your inner writer, is going to feed your imps in and do your inner writer more harm than just the worst troll review you ever get.
I agree.
I mean, like, because I've found like it's very rare to actually find. Yeah, but like I've found it's very hard to find readers who can even be detached about what's within their interest realm and what's outside. Like on that one, I do feel like an odd duck because, I read two of Maggie's stories in two of her different series, and they, she really does do very different series. And one was completely up my alley, and had a lot of the elements I always enjoy in stories. And the other one was not within, the type I like, but I can still appreciate what the storytelling is going on, and I can give, sort of review information of what I noticed in it. But most readers, if it's not the kind they read, like she was saying with Clive Cussler, of if it's outside that realm, it's not anything they can even talk about. All they can go is in reference to if how far different is this than a Clive Cussler story, is what you'll really get back. And that's not any help for a product you're making that's not in that genre or realm. Although I'm now actually thinking about maybe I should ask my neighbor and ask Maggie if she'd like me to show my neighbor that story, because realizing like it is kind of a Warhammer style
you
story.
might really
it's like, it may actually be his type of story.
I'm fine with you sharing it to anyone.
And he's pretty good with feedback. Like, he's articulate is what I mean.
Yeah, he does have actually very good constructive feedback. But I realized, like, yeah, he is a 40K, and this is more of that sort of, not military, but this sort of world that is less forgiving. It's harder for me in those stories where, the world is just truly unforgiving, and it is, daunting.
Yeah. So, I think that's a very good point about being careful who you ask for feedback so that it is truly constructive feedback. Or at least if you're asking somebody who is not, say, a colleague but is just truly a recipient of that type. So like a listener, a reader, just they're just like a consumer, and that's it. Knowing that you're going to get strictly consumer style feedback of essentially how much did they enjoy reading it? Was there anything that interrupted their enjoyment of the reading process? So that's really what you're going to get, versus if you're asking somebody who has much more kind of in technical feedback to give, such as editors and even, your alpha readers versus your beta readers. So knowing what kind of feedback you're expecting can be helpful for not having a sudden slap in the face feedback wise. Because again, the worst thing in the world is to suddenly I don't feel like writing ever again. This is it.
I don't feel like editing ever again. This is it.
This is it. No, this is all. I'm done.
After this year, I don't think anyone's going to blame you. I think that we are all just impressed by, how your word reading.
Yeah.
I lost my mind. The next New Year's
I mean,
Eve,
and it's not novellas. It is full stories.
Talk you down.
To drive you to Colorado to hit me in the head with a rolling pin.
Well, I wouldn't mind a little.
And
bit
I am impressed at the story, at the size of the stories you did too, because it's not like just simple little stories. It is,
I'm gonna
intricate.
write a short story a month and publish those, which is reasonable. No, it's like full novels. Like, really?
But I have
series novels with intricate intermixing in the stories between novels.
The stories between novels were just never mind. I'm not happy. I don't ever want to do this again. You've offended me.
Right? Yeah, you've offended you is what happened. Like you having to live this life. Yeah. That's why you need all those chihuahuas to comfort you, because you're the one who set this hell up.
Yeah, I need an emotional support dog for every series.
And also why you come up with these scenarios for your characters.
I'm sorry, this did not mean to turn into a roast Maggie, and yet it is super fun.
It's fine. I will be the first person in Roast Maggie to admit I have lost my mind. And I have documentation.
But it is amazing to watch. I mean, it is right there with what's his name? Who's like, I'm gonna stay in a clear plexiglass box above Times Square for a month.
David Blaine or one of those.
I can't remember the name of the magician. Yeah, David Blaine.
I want to know
where it's that kind of like, go. I don't think you're sane.
Yeah, Chandra says my parents threw away the first draft of my first attempt at writing a book, and my ex told me he would divorce me if I tried to publish. No one can take away my love for writing.
Chandra's a warrior.
Good stuff.
I love Chan.
Yeah.
Well, like for me, like none of y'all could ever say anything to me as bad as our mother used to say to me about my writing.
Or my
like
father.
None of y'all. None of y'all could try.
Well, I will sometimes couch it of, hey, Glory, I can hear our mom's comment. Do you want me to say it or keep it to myself?
And I sometimes have to get a stuffed animal first, and I'm like, let me hear it, because I have to know. I just have to know what is, a comment from our dead mother. Like, what you got? And then I'm like, oh, that did hurt. I'm glad I'm holding a stuffed animal.
But that's why you can't hear criticism in the voice of your imp.
Yeah. Of like, because, yeah, she, and it wasn't like she just had a particular brand of criticism. It was across the board. It was everything from badly written to too schmaltzy. It's too sentimental. Then it's too cold and ruthless. It's uncaring. Like, it was like, there's no pleasing nothing. It's just always terrible. Just say it. Just say it's terrible.
Yeah, there's never a satisfaction.
Nope. Never. Never. Because it wasn't what she would have written. And that's really what it boiled down to. So, and yet, she did not rob me of my joy of writing either. I absolutely love to tell stories. I just now doubt that anyone else would enjoy it because she's the one who put that imp of doubt in my head.
I will take all the stories.
I got some coming up for you. I'm a little slow right now because of a deal with kidney stones.
Pink book,
But-
pink book, pink.
Yes,
Pink book.
specifically the pink notebook. Those are coming up. And in fact, when we thought no one was going to show up today, I was like, well, if we need filler, we could go over one of my bits I haven't finished editing, when I could go over process. Because I didn't know what else to like fill up the time with.
Yeah. I'm sorry I was late. I'm trying to get my daughter moved into a new school. And I was just like, I can't.
I didn't know you were late. You showed up. Yeah, like, Carrie, I'm glad you moved on.
Yeah.
Different people, because
And Joe has learned that when I go too long without writing, I'm crazy.
Yeah,
'Cause
Thomas-
I didn't get a whole lot of writing time in, especially when, I'd say most of the first year of Anna's life.
yeah,
It affected me a lot.
Tom was the one who said to me, "Of like, Gloria, you've got to start writing again because you're losing your mind, and you're the most miserable person you've ever been. You've never been this miserable in your life." And I'm like, that's saying a lot, considering my ex-husband is like years away now, and he's like, "Yeah, that's what I'm trying to explain to you." Like, so, yes, I hate that there's no one to support you either. You expect to support someone who doesn't support you. I wish everybody had like that ultimate supporter in their corner, like personally. Everybody deserves that. And I know everybody here, both on screen and in chat, 1000% deserves to have somebody just cheering them on all the time. And, in case you haven't heard it lately, I know I'm here to cheer you on. I know Tom is here to cheer you on. I believe other people are as well. But
And I'm always here to, enjoy everyone's stories if they want, some feedback, or just someone else has listened and enjoyed it. As I said, like I can unlike most, I seem like I can tell you what works in the story from just a story perspective, even if it's not my realm.
Mm-hmm. Like even just talking your story.
I mean, I might comment like I did to Maggie of, all right, who's going to live through this? And it turns out, no, the purpose of the story was they die. I was like, oh, I missed that at first. Now the story makes more sense.
Everyone dies. They get revived later, but they all die.
Yeah, but like you don't realize that with the way the story starts.
Part of my feedback would be about foreshadowing that in order to prepare the reader. Hi, can I introduce you all to foreshadowing? It is important to give your reader that dopamine kick at the end, and in order to do that, you got to foreshadow at the beginning. Just throwing that out there.
He was born on the day of a battle that wiped out a city. You had to know.
Somebody has to be born every day. It's just how people work.
You have no idea how hopeful I am deep down. It is a curse I blame when I was born. I'm not even joking. My hope is eternal. I keep trying to get rid of it, but my hope really does spring eternal, and it keeps coming back.
It just pops back up. It just springs back evergreen.
It is hard.
It is an addiction to hope.
I will find a way to kill it. I mean, please read my next book.
Yeah, I still have 2 more to read for the Hunter. And yeah, the second one was a lot more enjoyable because I better understood where this story was going. The beginning definitely had a bit easier for me to kind of see this. But yeah, that first one was just so unexpected of, wait, what? It just gets worse. How does this get worse? Okay, I'm kind of admiring the skill at getting worse. But where are we going with the story?
We love you too, Chandra. Oh, the kitten.
Here, Tom, to make you feel better.
Oh,
for
look at this sweet
Yeah.
baby.
Oh,
Carrie's gonna fight us for that beautiful little baby.
I mean, I could actually see that kitten being
Gonna have a
named
tug war.
Atomos.
Very cute.
I mean, that's a little kitty that's a survivor.
Mm-hmm. So, has everybody said the things they definitely for sure came here to say? Whether it's about editing or it's about something else.
One more thing.
What you got?
So, this is what happened
What?
during the pre-party. I was having an internal slight meltdown about my first draft of my middle grade because it is so flippin' short. So, I know it's going to take a lot of editing, and I've already given it to Barrett, who's reading it and will give me feedback. But just talking it out with Lori and going through the beats with somebody has opened my brain to like, oh yeah, duh. So,
And that's why story development editors are really useful, even for seasoned writers, just for the record. Like, it's just so useful to have somebody who understands this part of the craft.
you don't have to just do it before you write. You can do it after a draft as well.
Absolutely, 1,000%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. I used to wonder, like, why do people need story development editors? And then I realized that that's all Tom and I do for each other. Like, for literally 2 decades. And I'm like, oh, I see. Other people don't have an in-house story development editor available 24/7, 365.
My story development editor joined the Navy.
I mean, the audacity of her.
The audacity.
Yes, Chandra, you absolutely need to get on my schedule because we need to have that little conversation. I can't wait to like work out your series with you. Ditto for Spence. You need to get on my calendar.
With her book. I volunteer as tribute. Carnivorous plant ladies totally up my gardening aisle.
Yes.
Yay!
I believe that.
I absolutely love our community. Like, we're like, let's all like, who's helping who? Let's make sure that we've covered the spread.
I mean, Maggie does have a petting zoo home. I mean, inside and out, like that is a petting zoo.
I don't.
And at the same time, it's like,
these.
yes, I need plants that attack.
How about, like, do you know, I'm secretly hoping and waiting for Maggie to bring a goat inside in the winter, but there will be no wind, so the internet works, so she can be on and I can watch her pet goats live. I have been waiting months. One day.
I have to go to the auction next. I won't be here next week because I have to go to the auction to see if I can find a new buck. So that we can have babies in the spring.
Yes. We need babies.
Yep.
Go babies.
Babies with wiggly little tails.
Yes, the tails. Yes. So that is, I guess, like, ultimately, that's really, like, my takeaway that I really would love everybody to take with them is when you're like, I think it's done, but I don't feel like my story's popping. What do I do? And the answer is, you need to reach out and ask for other people to give you feedback. And it may be something as simple as just literally talking out, tell me the basic plot of your story, and we'll figure out, like, if there's any major beats that are missing. Or it may be, more detailed with more detailed feedback, or, so on. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but there is no reason we should necessarily give up on a story just because it doesn't pop. It just means it needs more work, and maybe some different perspectives are needed to bring it,
And there's a lot of perspectives on this group.
There's nothing wrong with phoning a friend.
Yeah.
In fact, I would highly recommend it. But, there's no writer, let alone no skill. I say no skill, and yet I'm thinking of a couple super best-selling writers who don't let anyone edit them anymore, and it really shows in their work. But let us say, among the fully functioning writers, in the world, there's no writers who do not use multiple people, not just one editor, but like a whole team of people that they pull together to help them improve their stories. Everybody, no matter how skilled, no matter how seasoned, is using other people. And like I know plenty of editors who turned writers who also then get other editors to help them, even though you're like, but they're professional editors. Why do they need to like get someone else? It's like perspectives. And when we run out of perspectives, experience? No, we don't run out of perspectives. But, all of that. So this is just part of the process. And I just sometimes concerned that newbie writers, young writers, people who are just merely new to the craft don't know that this is a very important and necessary part of the process they may be unaware of. Hey, sweet little cone baby. He's like the cone, mommy.
The cone of shame.
Why you leave it on me like this?
It's getting so dirty with all this dirt because he's sniffing along and
keeps scooping it up
dirt.
I bet he has the dirtiest little neck.
Oh gosh. He's not allowed to have a bath for 2 more weeks. It'll be 3 weeks with no bath.
Yes. Oh, I bet his neck is just dusty. Yeah, because like even Cassie, who was a smooth-haired, short-haired dachshund, when she was in the cone, the dust. It just collects it. Oh, well.
Yes, sir.
So that's my final bits that I'm like, look, please reach out. We'll get you covered. Reach out to other editors.
Maggie. I gotta figure out the true ending to my story. Dagnabbit.
We'll figure it out.
My hot take is there's no one way to write. There is no one way to edit.
Yes.
Find your own path. Build your own garden.
Fill it with carnivorous things.
Fill it. Or not. Or
have
goats and
fun
bees.
with it.
Yeah.
Goats and bees and roses watered with the tears of your readers. And the other thing is, don't let your imp win. Because getting the writing done is a big high, but editing, unless that's the part of writing that you really love the most, editing is the thing that will suck the most joy and cause the most self-doubt. And it's so hard to be serious when Pris is gnawing my toe and making little crying noises.
She's so hungry.
She is not hungry. She has a bowl of food.
Give me that butter.
Hi,
in
baby.
The bathroom. Hi,
she's
sweetheart.
so thirsty.
Look who's awake. But yeah, and the third thing is find your audience.
Yeah.
Find your audience and don't take the criticism personally, because it's your book, it's your world. Yes, evaluate everything that you're told, see if it has merit, but it's not personal.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I take personal criticism personally from people who know me well, who know how I live, who've seen my incredibly messy house that totally needs me to sweep and mop the kitchen. Have I done it? No. I take that criticism like from people who have seen like me and they know me very well. They have something to say because they know me that well. But people who are just reading a story, they don't know me. Anything they say wouldn't be the truth anyway because they don't know me that well. So keep that in mind even when it feels personal. It cannot be personal because they don't know you personally anyway. Carrie, did you have any final thoughts you wanted to share before we wrap up? Oh my God.
Oh,
this baby.
Also going with the whole don't take the feedback too personally. Most of the time people are giving you feedback to help you. And we are our own worst critics as artists and creators. So you just gotta try to stifle that a little. And it's a lifelong thing. I don't know if anybody ever actually masters it.
No, just keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
I
It helps.
once, go on.
I was gonna say it helps to have a wonderful group like we have here. So
I was once at a gallery showing, and a friend had invited me because they owned the gallery. And they asked me what I thought of this particular artist. And it was at the showing, so it was a bit of a party atmosphere. And I just said, they'd asked about various artists I saw, and I said what I thought. And then they're like, oh, but what this one? And they only had a few sculptures, and I was like, it's not for me personally, but I mean, they look okay. They look nice. It's just not my style. Y'all, the artist was in the same room. I didn't know. And they went on the rest of the night, like hounding me and attacking me because I simply said, it looks nice. It's just not my style.
did they not get the memo that art is subjective?
And then, I was like, after a while, I got tired of it, and I was like, look, my dude, not everybody is ever going to love your stuff, but if you keep hounding me, I'm not going to be nice, and I'll tell you what I actually think. And he was like, and the party was almost over, and he was like, yeah, I want to hear, look, everybody actually gathered around, and I was like, this looks like a stinking piece of metal that you threw some acid on and went, oh, it's art, and I am unimpressed. This is not for me. And it's not my style. It looks fine. It looks nice, but it's not my style. And then he puffed and left. And his friend turned to me and was like, that's literally what he did. I know, I was there in the studio. It's literally what he did. So
Be careful what you ask for. If you get it.
But again, I have learned that apparently, that kind of feedback people take personally, and I'm like, that ain't personal. The only way you'll get better at receiving feedback is by experience. At a certain point, it's about racking up the XPs, the experience points, y'all. So just get in there and be prepared to eat ice cream afterwards. Just be prepared. It'll be all right. I promise it won't kill you. I'll make this promise. You email me if it turns out it killed you. Okay? If you died, email me.
Hold you to that.
We have it on tape now. That's how old I am. Tape. We have a recording of it. People can email me if they died. They can email me from the afterlife and let me know, and I will owe them a favor.
Sounds good.
Right. Would anyone like to do an outro? Or no, Tom, you have something to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this actually kind of goes back to when I was doing the photo editing and when I was working in photography, doing images and all that. But it still goes with all creative outputs, including writing, which is if you're not enjoying it, if it's a drudge, you really do need to stop and look at it and go, all right, how can I change this so I enjoy doing it? Because the people who then experience it will notice if you enjoyed it or not.
Mm-hmm.
If you feel like it's a drudge, it will be a drudge to read or will be a drudge to look at. If you had fun messing around with it, changing things, creating it, people will often also find fun aspects to it. And so, don't try to punish yourself being creative.
Thank you.
I too often hear people talking about that, including editing of I just don't want to do it. It's like, well, why not?
No.
What is it that's, so sad? And I understand when it's I don't want to do this scene, it's upsetting for me.
Sure.
Or I'm not I get that one, but versus just I just don't want to do it again. I mean, it's well, then you really need to reconsider what you're doing. Because it's creative. It's fun. It's, something new. everyone should enjoy it.
Uh-oh.
And that is why I'm absolutely certain if and when I ever finish, writing out this little short story or whatever it becomes, most people are probably going to consider it just boring because I love it and I'm enjoying it. And I'm mostly just writing it for me. And it's like, well, I'm going to have to do a lot of re-editing because I don't think anyone's going to enjoy it like me. But I'm going to keep putting it out because I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
She's laying everything out on my desk like so carefully and precisely. It's so
Trying to
cute.
organize it. Yep. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
So, would anyone like to do any outros?
Laura has a lot of news.
Oh, Laura.
do.
Laura.
I have a series on YouTube of me coming up with and drafting my middle grade, and it's done. The first draft. So I will be vlogging the editing process and revising for draft 2 coming up, because I'm not letting it rest, because apparently it's only half done. So I'm going to pull out forward with Barrett's notes and Colin's notes and see what I can make of this thing of awesomeness. I'm also doing writing sprints on Twitch at Laura_Nettles. I do them usually Saturdays, and I might be doing one tomorrow. Depends on my job, if it's working or not, because I'm finally putting this stupid shot on the farm so I can be done for the night. So, yes, that is me. I love you all.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Maggie? Or no?
I'm pointing.
Carrie?
I'm trying to point at Carrie, and I'm pointing.
Oh, okay. Hold up.
That way.
There's Carrie.
I'm Carrie. I've been writing a fantasy series, and sometimes I forgot to mention in the intro, I do writing sprints and gameplay of Stardew Valley on Twitch. My days are going to be changing when I do that because life is crazy and her. And yeah. So.
Cool.
Say hi. Say hi.
Hi. Hi, sweetie.
Hi.
Give us a wave. Hi. Good job.
Good job. And everybody's information will be updated in a moment down below in the description. Can you tell I was super tired today? 3 hours sleep is not enough. But I'll get there.
I need to come bake for you, lovely.
Yes, I definitely need some bacon. I was literally actually just thinking that yesterday of like, there's nothing delicious and baked in this house. And I'm too tired and I hurt too much to do it. All right. Maggie, did you want to do an outro?
I can.
Okay.
I'm Mama Maggie Ward. I am a stroke survivor who turned my stroke disability into 2 million words, which I decided in 2021 to edit and publish many of them in my Hold My Coffee 2021 series on my YouTube channel. You can catch up with my insanity. Also see lots of clips of my farm and my animals. And yeah, so I just, my only thing to say to everybody who's starting writing is my hashtag no words left behind. And just keep writing. There may only be 5 people in the world that want to read your story, but it's still 5 people that you would rob your story from if you didn't write it.
And then they could write fanfic.
And then they can write a fanfic.
Yes. That priority show.
Heck yes.
Now it's Glory's turn to talk about Glory's new book. Glory.
How dare.
Tom's in the way. There's Glory.
Okay.
And Mabel Woke Up Dead is on her YouTube channel. High five, Tom.
I love. First off, in theory, if you refresh down below in the description, everybody's info is now listed at length. And if I've gotten any of your links wrong, please let me know at some point, and I will update them. Because y'all should definitely be very familiar with Maggie and Carrie and Laura because they are super duper awesome, and they're also super duper talented, which, I mean, I admit it, I am shallow. I tend to have friends who are super smart and super talented and also super pretty. So, you know, look.
Brain damaged.
Same. I mean, like, yeah.
No, it's not brain damage. We're just all neurodivergent.
1 in 8
Our brains
people
are not typical.
neurodivergent.
No,
So,
technically my brain is damaged.
It's now different.
I'm in there too. But anyhow, so everybody's links are down below. I hope you will check them out if you haven't before. And if you think you have, maybe check them out again just in case. Because I've listed everybody's coffee accounts that I knew of. And you can follow everybody for free for like $0. It's fantastic. You can also like do more than that on everybody's coffee account. But I'm just throwing that out there as something to think about of like, you know.
Did you know I have a coffee account now?
Like in theory, I want to say yes, but I can't like, do you know how like the memory is not working right now? Like 3 hours sleep. My brain is like, we are in crisis mode. We don't worry about the past.
Sounds good.
This is Glory's brain. Da! You have reached the dial tone of my mind. Please hang up and make your call again. This is a recording.
Pretty much, yeah. That is pretty much where I am.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Yeah. So let us see. Now next week we're doing something. Next week. You're all gonna love it. I know you're gonna love it. It is one of our most popular episodes whenever we do get around to it. And it is called Bring Out Your Writing Craft Books.
Woo!
Everybody come prepared, both if you want to be on screen and in the chat, with the books you want to pitch. Of like, here is why I think you will love this book. All writers love to hear about writing craft books they're not familiar with, and they want to know all the good ones. And you know what? You can even bring your shitpost list of like, these are the ones don't buy, save your money. Because Tom certainly is going to mention this. So like, he's really mad about one book that we even got on sale, and he's still mad about it. It was one of those horrible books that only had like 4 or 5 good pages, and the other 65 were just worthless junk.
Oh no.
He's still salty about this a literal year later because we read it like last August or September.
Is it Stephen King on writing?
No, it is not.
Okay.
It is not
No,
that.
Stephen King actually has more interesting stuff to say
Yes.
than this one.
But yeah.
This one was just self-aggrandizing, which is saying something in comparison to Stephen King.
It was very. I'm like, this book could have been $1.99. So if that, frankly, it should have been a free book. So bring your craft books. Think about it ahead of time. If you want to just be in chat, think about like what you want to write about it, because we're going to want to know all of it. More than likely, Tom or someone else will make like an index of all the books mentioned, and we will then put it in the comments, and pin it. So everyone will be able to see it later. So come prepared next week. Make a note now so that you will be prepared next week with all your books that you want to mention. And it can be any kind of writing craft book. So it can be those kind of coaching, mentoring books that are simply, you can do it. This is the year you do it. Because I have a couple books like that too. But like, as well as actual craft books. I know I'm going to mention.
Me have to read my craft books now.
Yes.
I know, right?
Or at least skim them. Skim them so you know. Because I don't recommend anything that's like, it only has 5 pages of goodness in it and all the rest of the pages are a waste of treat. Like,
No.
Well, my favorite is the 10 BS medical tropes that need to die today and maim your characters. So,
right. And I gotta be honest,
Tom has read too much of my writing, he's laughing.
If one of your top 10 craft writing books is actually like an article someone wrote, be prepared to share the link. So be prepared. This is going to one that you want to be prepared for. So that's why I'm telling you now. Make a note to yourself so that you have all your goodness ready next Monday. In theory, next Monday, Megan and Amy and maybe Carrie, maybe not, and maybe not Megan. I don't know what's going on. We'll see. If anybody else would like to join us, y'all know we got the paid StreamYard account, so we can have up to 8 or 9 people.
I'll definitely at least pop in.
Yes. So excellent. So let me write that down because I will forget because my brain does not record much when I'm sleep deprived.
Does it run out of tape?
It's like we never even pressed the button. That's my brain when I'm sleep
sound
deprived.
is way too familiar.
So that's what we're doing next episode. I think y'all are gonna really love it. It's one of the favorite
Spence
episodes.
wants to be on.
Okay, let me write Spence in. Because Spence I actually need to get picture and links for. Spence, if you got a headshot, go ahead and send it to me wherever you want to. So, because I will forget because I have ADHD. So that's what we're gonna do next week. We're gonna go out with a bang for this first season. And I can't wait to see y'all. So beyond that, I got nothing to report, y'all. This summer has been rough on me. I am still recovering. Oh, I think on the 25th
No.
I don't know. I don't know if it's Zara's YouTube or Twitch. I can't think straight. There's going to be the AuthorTuber musical theater discussion thing that I think I will be on. I'm still in the group chat, so I assume I'll be on. And I think it will be in the evening on Saturday the 25th. And yeah, that's what I got going on along with the usual. We will play another game, Townsman, on Wednesday, and then Coffee Buddy will be on my channel as well on Twitch. So all the goodness that we're going to do. That's the things as I slowly slink forward in publishing.
You got this.
No, I don't. I don't got it. I need sleep. But thank you.
You'll get it after your sleep.
When will that be?
Sleep is for the weak. I volunteer to be weak.
Yes. What's a little sleepy, death. So with
And
that,
I believe Glory will be doing Coffee Bunny this Thursday.
yeah, I'm hosting Coffee Bunny. Yes. So thank you. Did I forget anything, y'all? No, we're good.
Should you want to just go ahead and tell them what's October? Wait, what?
Oh, well, we're going to do season 3 of movies. Only Tom wants to rebrand it G&T's Creative Recharge. So we're rebranding it. And we're going to add in a format where we not only recommend movies and TV shows, but also books each episode.
No, stop fighting your brother.
As we go over it as genres.
Yeah. Yep, Maggie. Yep. So that is what we are going on. So we will be having the after party. If you would like to join us, we would love to have you. Avatar mode is A-OK by us. So, and with that, I shall wave us off into the western sunset. Good night, y'all.
Bye.